afternoon, everyone. I'll go ahead and call the meeting of the April 14th City Parks Board meeting to order. And welcome to the Girl Scouts. We'll have the roll call, please.
Jacob Slabby, present.
Mary Schmager here.
Mike Niesman, present.
Anita Martin here, and our chair tonight, Tim, is not able to be here, so as vice chair of the committee, I will go ahead and chair it. We thought we would go ahead and I guess we need an approval motion to change the agenda so that we could have the Girl Scouts on first and then they can go on, right? Yeah.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you.
So to introduce, we have two awesome sets of young women here tonight. So we have Troop 8243 and we have Troop 9046. Both have different goals for the city of Lake Mills and different goals for their actual troops. They've been fantastic to work with. They're incredibly driven. I hope that they are excited for some of these projects. And if you guys have any questions of me, I can kind of guide you through too. But generally, Troop 9046 is going to be working on some of the habitat installation projects that we have discussed. And Troop 8243 is going to be doing some initiatives for signage at Bartles Beach to hopefully reduce the amount of littering in the park. So two different agendas for both of them. If you guys want to take a look at the sign up there, we are proposing that these would be installed at Bartles Beach. Ideally, we have two of them. They're approximately 2 feet by 3 feet, and these would be installed on near existing signage. Like I said, hopefully influencing people to respect our property a little bit more. I certainly hope the pink color stands out a little bit more and influences people to respect our parks. So they have fantastic initiatives, fantastic goals. I certainly hope they grow up with the community and do a great job. With that, if Troop, would we prefer 8243 or 9046 to go first?
9046.
All right.
Hi, we are Girl Scout Troop 9046. We are in 7th grade here in Lake Mills. We are here tonight to present our Silver Award project. I'm Brooklyn.
I'm Ariana.
I'm Macy.
I'm Layla. And I'm Greta. The Silver Award is the second highest award in Girl Scouts. Each Girl Scout has to put in 50 hours to earn the Silver Award. The Silver Award has Girl Scouts recognize leadership, community service, and the ability to make a lasting impact through a take-action project addressing an issue that they care about. The difference between a community service project and a take-action project is that a take-action project is a long-lasting project addressing an issue's root cause. It is done with the community. It creates an initiative to address the root cause. It helps Girl Scouts create and lead with their own team, and it sets goals. Community service, on the other hand, is a short-term effort. It is done for the community. It is joining an already existing effort, such as volunteering, and is working toward an already existing goal that has been set by others.
With your support, we'll be assisting the Parks Department in installing bat houses at Wallace Park, the Mill Pond, and Tyranina Park,
Along with making signs with information about the bats and bat houses.
After the homes are installed, we will monitor the bat houses and duck boxes regularly and report back to the DNR website.
Next year in 2026, we plan to report back to the Parks Board about our progress.
Some long-term effects of building the bat houses and ducks boxes is it makes a safe, warm environment for the animals, which then increases the population of the animals. This also benefits humans because if there are more bats, there will be less mosquitoes and bugs.
Some ways monitoring is important is because some bats, such as the little brown bat and the big brown bat, are almost endangered. As we monitor them, we can see on average how many bats are staying in each bat house. We are looking forward to this opportunity to partner with the Parks Board and get your support with this project.
Thanks for having us today. Does anyone have any questions?
Have the bat houses been constructed and who's making them?
Not yet currently. They are going to be made by tech ed classes at the Lake Mills High School though. So it'll be another continued community effort to hopefully include another age group of students.
I had a question. Can you repeat the 3 parks that you're planning on putting the bat house locations at?
Where?
Which three locations?
Yes. Wallace Park, the Mill Pond, and Tyranina Park.
Thank you.
Good question. So do you all like bats or do they freak you out?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
If you guys would like to discuss or make a motion to either approve each group's initiative independently or as a total project, that's up to you guys.
Well, I would like to make a motion to approve Troop 9046, 6's efforts on the bat houses to be placed at the 3 parks that were noted in their presentation.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is very,
And nice presentation.
you did a great job. Thank you.
All right, Troop 8243, you guys are up.
Oh, my goodness, wow. A lot of them, yeah. I know them all.
Hello, we are Troop 8243, and we are here to tell you about our Take Action project. I'm Brianna.
I'm Greta. And I'm Evie.
I'm Aria.
I'm Kira. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Olivia. The overarching concept of our Take Action project is to reduce trash at Bartles Beach. This will help to keep our beloved beach in service.
We are working to earn our bronze award. There are a couple of steps to earning the award. First is to complete a journey. Our focus was on the outdoors. After learning about outdoors and the earning badges, the next step is to complete a project.
As a troop, we have decided what our Take Action project would be. We thought about several different ideas and decided we wanted to focus on keeping Bartles Beach clean. We had great ideas on what could be done to keep Bartles Beach clean and decided on creating designs.
Each troop member designed a sign, and we voted on which one the troop liked best. The troop designed signs that were bold and popped so people would see them.
We would like to put the signs near the garbage can so people see them and throw away their trash.
The goal of the project is that Bartles Beach is cleaner and less polluted. This will help bring animals and people to Lake Mills.
Thank you for your time and support today. Do you have any questions?
I have one. What award are you working for?
We are working towards our bronze award.
Bronze award. Awesome. I have a question. So how many signs are we putting in the park?
2.
2? I think it will be very helpful. Bartles Beach is very busy, and there's often a lot of garbage, especially after a very warm summer day. So I think it's a great idea that you chose this as one of your projects.
And I do too. I think it's a nice, gentle way of saying, hey, guys, keep this place clean. So thank you for your idea. We need a motion to.
So when do you hope
Oh,
to
sorry.
have these signs put up?
I would say it's pending on your vote tonight, but we could have them installed absolutely prior to Memorial Day for our summer season.
I make a motion to support the project as described.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, very good. Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you. Very impressive group of young people. Okay,
I want to make the comment.
okay.
This is why I do what I do. Thank you, guys. Sorry, there is emotions behind the beard.
That's good to show.
Thank you. Okay, so next up on the agenda is the Parks and Forestry Director's Report. Have a nice rest of your day, girls.
Thank you.
Good job,
Nice.
for
thank
coming.
you.
Great presentations.
Oh, goodness, my apologies.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, guys. For the interest of time, I'd like to keep it a little brief, but there are some highlights that I'd like to do. I'll remind that this time is without doubt the most busy time of the season for us. It's not necessarily mid-summer, it's our preparations for summer. So we're drastically looking forward to our summer seasonal staff coming on board to assist with us. But there are a lot of things to set up. Those include the preparation of all of our parks, our water on, et cetera. And all of our restrooms are open as of today. That is weather dependent. Ideally, it's around mid-April. We happen to hit that right on the nose this year. But we did actually have some freezing temperatures previously, so it does kind of come down to condition, or it does come down to conditions. We are still continuing having a presentation of the fourth graders on Arbor Day. We are going to be continuing doing our tree diagnostics down at Sandy Beach. That will be a portion that we'll continuously discuss as we go through the redevelopment project and design for Sandy Beach. Let's see here. One of the other things that we have discussed as well that will come into play for Sandy Beach development is I have signed a trial period for static camera installation at Sandy Beach and Bartles. This was due to a lot of the boat launch damages that happened previously. We didn't have evidence of it. We didn't have security camera footage of it. So we are test trialing some camera systems that are going to be at Sandy Beach. We will see how they perform this year, and I can give an after-action report to Parks Board at the end of the season. With that, any other questions at all? Like I said, for the sake of time, I'll leave it up to your guys' input if you have anything that you want me to focus on.
I have a question. Eric, I don't recall. I'm reading about the new piers down at Sandy Beach.
Yes.
Yeah, are they in and planning to be? I didn't notice they weren't down there last weekend, but.
Yep, not in yet. They were expected to be in by April 15th. There have been a setback in the actual construction of them at the galvanizing process for the frames. Looking at April 18th now, I have been in direct communication with the actual pier installer. My goal is to have them installed for sure before fishing season opener. So if we didn't meet our April 15th deadline, I at least have my secondary deadline that I want to hit for that installer.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question on the report as printed or as presented?
Well, I have one more. So a question about the tree inspections. I know you have to wait for the growing season. Have you started that? 'Cause I know things are just starting to bud, so I don't know if that is too early, but I was curious if you have any early preliminary.
There are some things that we can inspect. Some easy ones would be like tip die back on some trees that are easily noticeable. However, they're much more noticeable, so I still think we would get a more accurate report once we actually come out of the dormant season. So we haven't published any or completed any inspections at this point, just some general inspections, so we have a little bit more of a idea of areas that we're going to be focusing on. Some trees require more in-depth inspections than others, so that's kind of where we're figuring right now. So like some of our old growth oaks that are down there, we are waiting until they break the dormant season here to get a better look at them, more accurate inspection on it.
Because I recall there being a comment about oak wilt down there and down that area, and I am not knowledgeable about the percent of the trees that are oaks, so I was just trying to kind of get an early impression around, is it going to be very large effort, large number of trees? I don't just even thinking of the oaks specifically, but that's why I was kind of getting a gauge around in my head about what kind of impact might be down there.
So we will be performing a true inspection on each of these trees. What happens with an inspection is actually a list of criteria that's provided by ISA, International Society of Arboriculture. So when we go through those inspection reports, they are more in-depth than just doing a drive-by saying the tree looks fine. We'll do aerial inspections, we will look at bark, we'll look at root flares, codominant leaders, how's the shape of the tree looking. So they are thorough inspections. They will take a decent amount of time to do it, but as of right now, I don't have any clear direction on which trees would need to be removed for health concerns down at Sandy Beach. Now, I do want to say, as we talk about this, even though tree preservation is a priority that I would like to see on this project, inevitably there will be trees removed for the installation of some of the infrastructure down at Sandy Beach. I will touch on that as we go through our development of the concept, if that's fine.
Sounds good.
And I was wondering, with the rather unusual winter being kind of mild in some respects, if in general, like in Wisconsin, have there been considerable tree concerns that, people are reporting right now?
Right now, there have been some more susceptible trees. That would be a lot of our ornamental trees, like our magnolias, potentially dogwoods, serviceberries, redbuds. They may actually start blooming a little bit earlier. And if we don't break that frost period, or if we come back into a frost period, it actually can be detrimental to the actual growth or spring growth of those trees. I have noticed that on some magnolias, but actually they're doing fantastic outside, and that's what I use as a basis as well. So I have seen those reports, especially if you have a real dry winter or a dry spring, that's normally the biggest impact to it. But I kind of follow the general reports of other municipalities and keep in contact with them and see what we're doing. But that's generally what happens, is it'll be a rough start for a lot of our ornamental species that aren't as hardy. But like I said, our magnolias are actually doing fantastic, so that's good.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So next up is the correction and/or approval of our Parks Board meeting minutes from our last meeting on March 10th, 2025. Yes, Mary?
I have one suggested addition in the roll call. I think it would be, for clarity purposes, to have absent Tim Sprecher, just so that if anyone were to read the minutes, would note that we did have one member that was not present. And then, other than that, I would move to approve the minutes with that additional edit, unless someone else has anything. Sorry.
Anyone else have anything? No. I thought they looked good. So is there a second to approve?
Second.
Oh, as amended? Yes. Okay. We're all good? Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. And thank you very much, as usual. Very well done. Okay, next we have public comment period, including emails. So should we take the
Yes.
attendees first? Very good, thank you.
Dave, if you could pull up that link to Rock Lake Improvements website now, that would be great.
Could you do that for me? Okay, so while Dave's doing that, my name is Susan Trier, and I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Rock Lake Improvement Association. And Dave, if you could just either make it smaller, we need to look underneath an announcements. So on the home, underneath that. There's text underneath here.
There we go.
Right there. Missed it. Okay, so we are very excited that the City Council has given recreation oversight to the Parks Board. And Rock Lake Improvement Association would like to work closely with the Parks Board to talk about swimming recreation and possible management of E. coli, particularly during the Sandy Beach redesign. And so what we've done is, a number of residents have said to us that there's not a good place to get beach information. You know, they kind of pop over the DNR. It's a fairly confusing website. So we just designed this website. I'm not expecting any input from you now, but if you could look at it in another day and then give me feedback, I appreciate it. So you just saw the main page at the rocklake.org, right? And then right down here, if you go back where you were, Dave, good stop. First one, it says about Rock Lake beaches and swimming, beach safety for human health. So click on that, Dave, if you would. And this is what the site looks like. So it talks about beach safety, and if you page down a little bit, Dave, stop. This is an excellent chart. It's going to be our responsibility to keep it up. But what it's showing is a rolling history of all warnings and closures by beach, by year, and we're going to just keep doing it in a rolling 5-year period. So that is cumbersome information to gather, but we went ahead and did it. So last year, for example, in 2024, you had some closures in June 4th, July 22nd at Bartles. You had Sandy Beach East, interestingly, have a closure July 22nd. Sandy Beach West was July 22nd, July 30th, and August 13th. And you'll start to see trends, like you'll see Ferry Park, which is the only one in the town. They tend to have closures kind of early in the summer, and then nothing, and then you'll see that Tyranina has very few. Okay, so then go ahead and page down a little bit. Then it goes into recommendations on safe behavior at the beach, and then continuing down, then these are some drop-down questions. How often are our beach tested? What happens if there's a concern? What's the difference between a warning and a closure? And then what makes a beach polluted? Additional links. And then we went even further and we pulled together information about swimmer's itch. We have a little bit in the lake. We're not a big swimmer's itch. We're not like Devil's Lake. Blue-green algae. We do not have blue-green algae yet. And then we also talk about open water swimming, which is becoming an increasing activity on Rock Lake. And the only thing I'd like to draw your attention to is you page down, the very last one, we remind people about navigation, how they should be staying away, slow no wake, from piers, swim rafts, and beach areas. And a really important thing for the Parks Board to realize is that along Tyranina Beach, or the Tyranina Park, open swimmers can swim 150 feet from shore. That's state statute. Boats can go at speed at 100 feet from shore. So we have a conflict zone of about 50 feet. So we're just bringing it up to your attention. We can talk more about that later. We can talk more about methods or ideas and how to understand the E. coli situation, techniques to manage it, and those sorts of things. We'd have to get on your agenda for that. But we would really love to get your input. Is there anything more you'd like on a beach page like this? Is there something that you would like stronger, more visible? Like I'm thinking maybe that alert could be in a different color text, just the whole sentence, rather than just, one bold alert. I think that's really important for open swimmers to realize and for boaters to realize as well. So just send your comments to me. And Anita would be able to give my email, Jake, to you, rather than announcing it over the open meetings. Do you guys have any other questions for me? This was the only thing. I just wanted to bring your attention.
So I don't know if we can go back to the slide where it
Sure.
shows the closures and the warnings.
Yep.
Rock Lake, or excuse me, Sandy Beach East and West. Like
Yeah.
West obviously has more prevalent closings.
Yep.
Is there a reason why? Is it, like, I know that we had talked previously about, like, the sand moving with the currents. Is it shallower water there? Is that, or do we not know?
It has not been firmly identified why that there is more E. coli in that area. There has been, the city has mentioned that they think that it's probably seagulls and geese. Geese are known to cause troubles. It's not been tested yet to say for sure that it's a geese thing. You'll notice that E. coli can gather in warm water, so that's one thing that we want to do is try to not heat up the water of Rock Lake through wind, through currents, through a lot of people, a lot of bodies, and then also from wildlife and pets. So all those factors increase your E. coli. But you're right, that is a concern. And I would imagine it would be a concern for a restaurant as well.
Because I'm just trying to figure out the difference between the two beaches, obviously.
Yeah,
because they're right
Well,
next to each other, and
the West Beach there's also a storm water drainage right by the beach as well. Okay. But it's a historical situation, so I'm sure the wind has a factor in it, currents have a factor. It's also a lot of grass in that area. Maybe there are more geese in that area. What can we do to prevent that? And then there's been some new ideas from the DNR on management of sand. You'll notice that there are a lot of people on the west side. It looks a little bit more like what people think of a beach should look like. The east side looks a little bit more like a North Wisconsin beach with the trees, and I don't know, that's my favorite, but so one thing I read from the DNR is they're no longer suggesting raking beaches because that spreads the goose stuff around, but raking used to be considered the best thing you could do. So we could do some more research to try to bring some additional ideas for beach management. But we agree we should try to get a handle on that. Anything else?
Very
Okay.
good.
Thank you guys so much, and give us your ideas. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Okay. Ms. Hope, do you have anything? Okay, great, thank you.
I was upstaged by the Girl Scouts, so. Wow. So I invited them to come to our downtown cleanup, and they could really take charge of Bartles Beach. One thing I was going to say to you guys, it's great to have all these projects, but one thing I've learned through my experience as an old person is there needs to be a maintenance plan in place. So what happens to those bad houses when those kids grow up and go to college and don't come back to Lake Mills? You should be thinking about how that's going to be maintained. But I love their their cleanup idea for Bartles. That's pretty terrific. So I invited them. We're having a downtown cleanup sponsored by the Main Street program for the legendary Lake Mills, and it will be on April 26th, which is the Saturday after Easter, and it will begin at 9 a.m. We'll be gathering in Commons Park. I've invited a great number of people, and we have a bunch of need for some younger people. We have some great team leaders. We'll be breaking into groups, and we'll be going all over town, downtown, probably the beaches, also the parks, and our freeway entrance. We sponsor this, and it's also sponsored by the F&M Bank. They provide a pizza lunch for us at noon, so it's kind of a short-term thing. Fortunately, we have help from Eric to get rid of the trash that we do collect when it happens. So that's on the 26th. Also, I wanted to say that as the chairman of the design team of the legendary Lake Mills Group, we hosted a breakfast for our downtown gardeners, and that was really successful. We did that on the, the 5th of April. We had about 30 people here at the City Hall, and that was pretty fun. We honored both the gardeners that help us on our Main Street planters and Main Street areas, but we also honored those people that work through Vicki Wycliffe's group in the parks. And we honored all of those people that day. We had some fun, some breakfast, and some door prizes. So that was great. I loved it. I hope it can be an annual event. We also recruited about maybe 6 or 8 new volunteers, so I think we got Ford Court under control. The other thing I wanted to say is that I have developed a list of procedures that I would like to leave with you tonight for our Christmas and holiday decorating. There has been some conflict in the past about who does what and when, and I thought that it would behoove me, along with Vicky's suggestion, to make a procedure list, which I have done. Mallory in our Main Street office put that all together. I will submit that to you so that you guys can look at it and approve it, so that it's something that's kind of on the books, so we know who does what, when, and why. The other thing I wanted to say is I would like to invite you all to the 25th anniversary celebration of the acquisition of Corth Park, which will be on June 5th. I'm serving on an ad litem committee there to plan this event. We're planning a real kind of low-key event, but to honor the formation of the park and to honor some of those people who were involved. We're having a little ice cream socials, cake and fun and stuff on the 5th. It will begin, I think, at 5:30 or 6, and it'll be just like till dusk. So, what else? anybody who's available should show up for the downtown cleanup on the 26th. And you know that I'm going to have a lot of ideas about your Sandy Beach design, so I hope you'll be tolerant of those of us who live outside of your city in the community.
I have a question about the downtown cleanup. What can we do? Is there a website we can share on our personal social media or just to get more volunteers?
That'll all be handled by Legendary Lake Mills.
Okay.
But if you guys could recruit any youth, any groups, or any bunch that would really like to do that, the more the merrier. We will provide the safety vests, basically the lunch and refreshments along the way. People should come promptly at 9, divide into teams, wear good shoes, bring some gloves, no tools really necessary, just come and have fun. If there are some projects that you guys feel that really need attention, like sometimes we've done some mulching and stuff like that, Eric, let us know so that I can coordinate that, and we'll go forth with that. We have a great team of volunteers already organized, and it's been very successful in the past.
I have a question. Is the RLA doing a garlic mustard and general cleanup too? Is that same date or?
No, can you go to the, thank you, Hope, for your leadership, and
Thank you.
Same thing, Susan, but
So the Rock Lake Improvement Association, I just saw a flyer that's going to be distributed. It's going to be May 3rd. Again, a 9 to new situation. In that one, we're going to be looking at pulling up garlic mustard, the ever-popular garlic mustard, and also litter pickup. We're going to have 3 teams, 1 team at Bartles, we're going to have 1 team at Tyranina, and we're going to have 1 team over at Korth. There'll be someone from Rock Lake Improvement Association at each location, so that as volunteers come, then they'll have direction and there'll be snacks. And again, the city is volunteered and very helpful to have a dumpster so that you can get rid of the garlic mustard and that sort of stuff. So it's been a really cool spring. So I think May 3rd might be really a good time as far as actually having garlic mustard up, identifiable and easy to pull.
Thank you. If I could ask Hope a question. You mentioned the holiday decoration procedure. When would you want for us to be discussing that or reviewing that in order to meet your needs as far as scheduling and stuff?
Well, you know what they say, you got to start shopping for Christmas on the 25th of July, so, No, I'll leave this with Eric, and he can distribute it to you guys. You can take a look at it. It really basically says who does what when. If you guys want to talk about this next month, that'd be great. If you're too busy and you can't talk about it until sometime in the summer, no problem. But by the 23rd of November, we want this to happen.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate each and every one of you in the work you do, because it's a hard job.
Thank you very much, both of you, for all that you're doing as well. Thank you. Okay, then we would want to review if any of the Parks Board members received any emails or phone calls regarding any issues since the last meeting.
I received a phone call actually a couple hours ago, a local constituent. He said that there is a lack of basketball courts in town. He's actually a friend of my son's, is my son's friend's dad. He says Brookstone and Rotary are the only 2 parks. There's really no centralized location. His recommendation was a park at Fayetteville Park in place of the volleyball courts. Not a very popular volleyball destination.
Could you repeat that, Jacob?
Yeah,
Instead of the volleyball courts, at which park? I didn't hear that.
His recommendation was a centralized park, and off the top of his head, he mentioned Fayetteville. There's a
Fayetteville Park, okay.
single volleyball court that's relatively unused.
Okay, thank you.
I had correspondence of an interest to address the boats between the Sandy Beach swim area and the Woodland Beach swim area, given our conversation about the Bartles Beach issue with the boats encroaching. And so that was one correspondence. And then also a question about where to find the water level data on the website. And Eric mentioned that that is coming sometime soon.
Correct, yes. What I can do as well, perhaps I can show you, Mary, there are sections up on the website. There are other ones that need to be updated, but it's still under construction. It'll be a little bit easier to navigate and find, but it'll be posted.
Okay.
Mike, did you have anything? No, okay. So I did have contact with one person who had a number of recommendations regarding Sandy Beach redevelopment and what could be enhanced and perhaps changed for recreational enjoyment, as well as public health issues for swimmers and safety issues in terms of emergency management, vehicles getting in and out of the beach area and things. So, thank you. Okay, new business. We did the Girl Scouts. So next up is the review of the the City Council Resolution 25-19 and past, present, and future recreational amenities at Sandy Beach Parks. So Eric, if you would like to proceed.
Yes. So at that meeting, it was decided that there would be a time frame placed on this actual resolution for Parks Board to complete it. That resolution was actually changed to have the deadline being August 5th. That is a 4-month deadline. Now, where that puts us for Parks Board involvement for completion of this resolution requirements would be by July 31st would be our packet deadline for the agenda for City Council. So I do want to be mindful as we go through the review of the recreational facilities down there. We do have a deadline for it. I want to make sure that we're being cognizant of it, whether that requires special meetings if we haven't quite met the obligations or potentially public hearings. So I want to make sure that we stay on top of it. Now, with that being said, I would like to introduce our concept drawing that has been updated from the 2018 Meet and Hunt concept drawing. This concept drawing, I was not involved in the prior drafting of that concept. What I wanted to do is take some of my priorities, the department's priorities, and a lot of the correspondence that I have received, and just some of the things that I noticed at Sandy Beach that I think would be great to see down there, hopefully meet the best of both worlds. And I would like to create this or treat it as our working document of the concept. So as we move forward, if we want to make alterations, additions, changes, or location changes, this will be our working document for that. I'll make those requests made to Meet and Hunt, so I just want to be aware that this was my design with my staff's input and, like I said, resident input as well that drafted this. Now, what they will do, though, is they'll be able to re-render some of those things and change it. So this is a draft working document, but I would definitely want to focus on that. If you wouldn't mind, I can actually go through some of the reasoning and current locations that are drafted here, and I will open it up to any other questions at that point. Ideally, it is up to your guys' discretion on how this is handled. What I'm kind of looking at here is to see if there's anything that we know for absolute certain this is what we want to have at Sandy Beach. Let's stick with that. And then we will move on to basically the next recreational features. Hopefully we can kind of leapfrog this and prioritize as much as possible to meet that deadline. So some of the input that I had most substantially was pretty much everything excluding the parking lot. I did everything basically from the parking lot north and all of the interior park amenities. So if I could actually start at the parking lot and work up. If you would like me to stop and we can continue anywhere, by all means, that's fine, but I'll go through the drawing. If you'll notice on the west side of the parking lot, there are a couple.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Go ahead.
Would you mind trying the microphone next to you, or was that the one that we had problems with last time? You're echoing a little bit. I know this is like Mike me. Are you hearing him well today?
Mostly.
Okay.
Is this any better at all?
Yes.
Okay. So as we go into the west side,
That's better for me. Is that better? Okay, thank you.
the west side of the parking lots, that is where the handicap stalls are, as well as law enforcement designated parking in that location. Hopefully maintaining adequate law enforcement and emergency personnel access to the park. As we go north, or actually on the north side of the parking lot, there's a food truck plaza. This, ideally, what this would do is be accessible to the entrance of the park, at least be within walking distance, hopefully not have it too disconnected from the parking lot itself, and just make all those options accessible to people if food priority or food service is a priority. Each one of these, you can see that plaza area is a hardscape area for people to walk on and actually dine there and just not be crammed in. Yeah, go ahead.
On this map?
Just north of the parking lot.
Yep, just north of the parking lot, there's that,
You see it,
Well, I
Mike?
see the relocated volleyball. Where are you vis-a-vis that?
no. So go to the,
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're that parking lot.
He's going north of the park.
Okay.
Oh,
I was over here.
well, that is both
Okay.
parking, yeah.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
Eric, just to, not to cut you off, but just to verify, the food truck plaza, would that be in the exact location of the trailered boats?
correct, yeah,
Okay.
yep. So to give you a bit of understanding, that's where that would be. That was by design, there's, let's see here, I forget what the actual space, it's 10 feet in between each section. There would be utility hookups to each of these food truck areas, kind of think of like a drive-in movie theater style. And then the other goal too was just trash refuse and removal. That's why they're near the actual maintenance garage where the dumpsters are located as well. If I move westward towards the actual park entrance, you'll see the plaza, picnic, and ice rink area. What difficulties that I have for maintenance and just building of the ice rinks down there is when we use a natural surface like that, I just cannot reasonably accommodate making these ice rinks anymore. It's getting extraordinarily difficult to do it just based on the current conditions. There's another community, I believe it's Village of Waterford in Racine County, that has a hockey rink border system. That allows it to be flooded, it's easily chillable, it's much easier to maintain, and that would be proposed to be within that area in the off-season, so we would still be retaining an ice rink, just in a different location. That plaza area would also act as kind of like an outdoor dining picnic area. To the west of that, you'll see a large shelter, it's called the concessions shelter. That's approximately a 4,000 square foot shelter. That can absolutely be changed, but the intent behind it is something similar to Korth Park. I would like to keep these timber framed style shelters so they're not very obtrusive to the park and it looks like they belong. But this would have ideally a concession area for minor vending, potentially a rentable kitchen or a small service kitchen. I have seen examples that have tap rooms, but we would have the flexibility there. But then you at least have some covered dining areas in the form of a large shelter. As we move north, the volleyball courts have been relocated from their current location in the parking lot to the interior of the beach. This is without doubt the most correspondence that I've had is regarding the location of the volleyball courts. The public, at least that I've spoken to, drastically favor them being on the beach. There are currently 5 volleyball courts at the park. One of those volleyball courts is interior of the park that really isn't used all that often. To consolidate some resources and some beach space, I made the determination that 4 would meet existing needs at least, but it could be reassessed to see if 4 is needed to potentially allow additional beach space. As we move along the beach, one of the most obvious things that you may see is the removal of the existing bait shack, the dual lane boat launch, and this entire dotted area would be a uninterrupted swimming beach.
Where are you now with that?
Are you able to? I'm sorry, are you able to use a cursor and show up there at all?
That up, so get your mobile home.
Is there a laser pointer, Dave, and would you be perhaps able to zoom in on just some of the interior park stuff? No? Okay. I'll do my best to describe it. But as we go eastward from the volleyball courts, that is an uninterrupted beach area. There is a restroom shower building in the existing location of the current restroom. I would propose any failing or old infrastructure that isn't easily maintainable to at least be replaced. Why I wanted to place them where they are is to have as minimal disturbance to the park as possible. It really is the goal behind it. As we move eastward, there is a shelter there listed. That is the existing condition of the current large shelter at the beach. One of the other larger changes is as you move eastward towards Woodland Beach, the last thing listed shelter is the existing location of the playground. Some of the issues with having the playground there is a priority of mine is having handicap accessible playgrounds. That playground by design is not handicap accessible due to the grade that it is on. And if I would like to maintain ADA accessible playgrounds, that would be moved to where our existing maintenance shed is. As we move north, you'll see that proposed playground location. So that's one of the more major shifts. Our boat lift piers, kind of those marina style piers that you see, that is the same number existing, that are the same locations existing or very similar locations. And that other pier that is listed is our swim pier. I do want to remind you that the pier has been purchased and will be installed this year. Other than that, I definitely want to hopefully not confuse you guys, but there was a substantial amount of thought put into this. If I can go next to the other document that I provided, just a moment, please. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes.
Correct. All right. So if I go through some of the goals for the current Parks Department, I want to minimize park impact. What I mean by that is reasonably retain existing trees and topography. We do have mounds within the park and existing topography changes. I really want to limit disturbance by moving ground as much as possible. That's why some of the locations of structures are where they are. If we do it basically on location as the existing ones, it'll have less impact to the park and hopefully retain as many trees as possible. There will be an understanding that if we do move forward with these concepts, there will be some tree removals that will be confirmed, obviously, when we confirm where these locations are, but I do want to retain as many trees as possible within the park. And that's why I've installed buildings at near or current locations. Increase user access, I definitely would like to prioritize handicap and ADA accessibility. Encourage alternate forms of transportation. So I do actually have a designated bike parking location as well. I want to increase the occupancy of the restrooms and accessibility. Currently, right now, there are handicap accessible issues with the restrooms existing due to the grade increase, and I just don't think they really are adequate enough to the visitation of Sandy Beach. I would also like to include some form of outdoor shower at these locations as well. Like I said, just to increase a little bit of user access and maintain our diverse forms of recreation opportunities. What I mean by that is I would not like to limit or remove existing recreational opportunities that are expectations of the park. Prioritize uninterrupted beachfront. What I mean by that is the amount of correspondence that I have heard drastically favors a large swim area with an uninterrupted beach. That would basically be the combination of our east and west beaches. Keep motorboat traffic separated from the designated swim area. So with this design, this would be one contiguous swim area along that entirety of the beach. Remove and or replace failing infrastructure. We do have existing infrastructure, basically being the existing boat ramps, the bait shack that's down there. Our current maintenance shed and our restroom are very difficult to service and are, I don't want to say compromised, but they are showing their age and getting difficult to maintain. And then prioritize the long-term sustainability of structures and ease of maintenance operations. While I do want these to be aesthetically pleasing structures, I also want them to be robust, make sure they're long-lasting, make sure this is a project that we do once within our lifetimes, and make sure that it's correct as we go through it. Sandy Beach is without doubt the hardest park to maintain just based on the occupancy alone. So that being said, I do want to prioritize maintenance operations and ease of maintenance for the staff. Sorry, any questions at this point? I can go through some of our current recreational amenities, but.
I do have one question about your
yes.
map. And I may have missed this. The 16,000 square foot open area that is adjacent to the bike parking, what is that area?
Stormwater management system.
Okay, that's what I assumed, but I wanted to
Yep.
just, okay.
So whether that's some form of bioretention, pond plantings, I'm not quite sure. It has not been designed at that point. But that is the goal, that we would have at least 16,000 square feet in that location for stormwater management.
Thank you.
Okay, is now time to ask about the ice rink, or is now time to talk about the ice rink, or no?
The floor is really your guys. How we want to take this conversation is absolutely up to you. if there's anything that's absolutely not on the table that you're drastically opposed to or things that you are drastically in favor of, that could at least limit some of these things so we can continue the conversation moving forward. Maybe Mary can provide a little bit of input on that, on how best to tackle this, kind of like what we were talking as far as prioritization.
So Mike, hold your thought for 1 second. So the city council, just 1 second. Hold your thought. The city council discussed the Parks Board having a recommendation in the, I guess, April or August 5th, which puts us in the last July meeting. So if you think about our work, we have 2 meetings currently scheduled between now and July 31st, which would be our final discussion point. So we have a lot of work to do. The mobile home park is out, and parking is out per se, other than we, in our decision-making on the recreation aspects, including, as there was city council members, including the boat lift elements, I think some element of parking as it relates to possibly the boat parking, and all of the recreation is all in scope. And so if I think about what, and I made the comment because I am extremely anxious to get something moving in Sandy Beach, of having, I call them low-hanging fruit, if it's, I think, getting to Eric's point about if there are any elements of this plan that you say, this is absolutely what we want to do, like the continuous beach as an example, which maybe we all don't support that, but if that was an example, then there, I think, is a possibility we could move some elements up early to the city council and bring our proposal in phases so that they know, I mean, we could say, because it doesn't, some of the recommendations wouldn't influence the overall plan. And if they do, then we have to understand what the consequences are. If there's something that we say, we really all want 4 volleyball courts, but that impacts something else, we just need to understand what that is and be transparent. So that if there's a change in our thought, then we know what the downward effects are. So I think, I'm thinking that we should all ask clarifying questions, because I know you have a clarifying question about the hockey rink. And then I think other ideas to add to the table, but then to talk about, are there any aspects that can be high priority that we need to make sure we have in place? And I think it's going to be important on the public, if we want to do public hearing and or public input, that we figure out what questions to ask and when we're going to get that in, because our time's going to be pretty short. And we may need a special working session.
Yeah.
Which I think I would be open to, and I'm hoping y'all would
That's
too.
my thought as well, as perhaps a work session or a public hearing would be appropriate. My main goal, at least tonight, that I would really request is that we have some form of attack plan, I guess we could say, on how we want to pursue this within the next couple months. And like I said, absolutely eliminate or provide me a little bit of direction on where to focus my priorities. Because if there is something that's unanimously liked by the Parks Board, I can put a little bit more time into fleshing out some of those concepts. This is an absolute concept drawing in the best case scenario with the current goals that I came up with. No, that's not to say that that'll be in line with your current goals, which is absolutely fine, but that'll provide me a little bit more direction on where to focus my efforts as we move forward with it.
So process-wise, should we just go, as an example, should we start with ice rink?
I
And
mean,
then,
that's
like, we talk
totally up
about
to you
each
guys.
element in here and give you initial impression, reaction, and questions, and do that, go through each element? Is that a good place to start, or would you like to do something else, Eric?
That would work for mine. If we focus on individual recreational opportunities would be great, then I can kind of check off bullet points, I suppose, for the most part, but it's definitely up to your guys' discretion.
Jacob, did you have a question or comment?
I have a couple of thoughts. Off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to this, so have we considered the main concession shelter, obviously would be the largest. Have we considered a second story? Like, would it be cheaper to build up, like less concrete? Because my initial thought, like, what I visualize is a second story, like, patio to see the lake.
Currently, right now, no. Now, I will say there isn't a lot of information on the monetary aspects of this right now. This is kind of perfect world conceptual scenario or basis. So I'm trying not to obviously cost comes into play in factors of here, but if we were just focusing on prioritizing recreational amenities at Sandy Beach, what provides the best option for that? And then I could get pricing options from that point. So if we could, lack of a better term, just focus on the ideal case scenario, what you guys would like to see down there.
Because it seems like some of these things can be consolidated. Like I feel consolidated. I feel like if we were to build a large concession shelter and a separate bathroom, couldn't they be one building?
That's a good point. I do have input on that. So like I said, the locations and the amount of these things was by design, so I can provide you feedback on that now if you would like, but it's your guys' call. I did intentionally remove the restroom shelter from the picnic shelter. The reason for that is just based on the amount of visitation at Sandy Beach. The restrooms are used extraordinarily frequently down there with a ton amount of people. The idea behind that is they're easier to clean and service, and then I am kind of removing that aspect away from a potential dining area is my thought process.
Okay, because I kind of visualize, like at Korth Park, how they have the restrooms on the opposite side. So it's kind of open to the public.
My thoughts.
And I'm looking at that as almost, I call it a bathhouse. People have asked for showers.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning a wet area, like a bathhouse, wet area, and bathrooms, so people can change their clothes, whatever, like a
Correct.
bathhouse.
Yeah.
And I like that you're putting it where it's at now, so the plumbing, I'm just trying to think, it could be cheaper, because we kind of got the infrastructure already going there. And keeping it close proximity, but not with the food and eating.
Yeah,
So
and one of the
that's
things that I considered was
point.
that shelter having our handicap accessible restrooms attached to that shelter. So like single stall handicap restrooms, there are family use restrooms there on the back of that shelter, because we do have the utilities for it, or it would be planned for utilities. But just based on the hundreds of people that use that restroom on an hourly basis, it is by design. There would be a substantial amount of stalls that we just need to have to accommodate the users down there.
The showers you're mentioning, are those outdoor showers or just kind of quick rinse off?
That's pretty much what I'm proposing, yeah. And I do not have a example of a building to show you. I'm trying to keep it very conceptual basis, but that would be my vision, I guess you could say. It would be like an outdoor rinse-off area or a screened-in rinsed-off area, but it would be an exterior shower.
Is there an issue with sand? I mean, are there special plumbing things? Because that's going to be a lot of sand being washed out.
Yes,
That's
there
where
are.
people go in.
There's restrooms that are specifically designed to meet the accommodations for it. Yep.
And so, we're talking about not being able to go in and take an actual shower, but getting the sand and suntan lotion.
Like a sandal rinse-off station and like a general body rinse-off station if people are, exiting the water and leaving the park, for swimmer's itch, et cetera.
I do think it's important to have substantial shower facilities, because we're trying to help reduce the potential for E. coli. So we want to make sure that people are washing off, as well. I do have a question, and maybe I'm not seeing it here. Do we have a bait shack in this new design?
No.
No, okay. Can you explain that a little bit?
So that's by design, again, to not have an uninterrupted beach. If there are going to be bait shack, potential kayak rentals out of an area, if there's sunscreen purchasing or something like that, it would be on the understanding that would be in the concessions area. So what that looks like, is it primarily a food service establishment? Is it a tap room? Is it a convenience store, bait shack type thing? I could basically say it's a vending area. How you interpret it from there, does it serve food? What does it do? Is it a rentable kitchen? But that's kind of the thought process, is that like 1/3 of that shelter would be an area that would have that accommodation, but hasn't been fleshed out yet. But that space would be designated for that.
Maybe we should just go down the list of what's currently there and just say, we really want this and should use it, like playground, 2 separate beaches versus 1 large beach. Would that be faster?
That's not a bad idea if we go through the current recreational amenities. And what I will do then is I will let you know where they are in the current concept. Does that kind of work? Mm-hmm. So the first thing, if you don't mind, I can just go right down the list. I briefly talked about the playground. We do have a playground right now. It is not handicap accessible or compliant. We're nearing its usable lifespan for NPRA standards, that's National Parks and Recreation Association standards. It is still compliant, actually, with the exception of the silver metal slide. But the thought process there is to move it closer to the beach, have it on flatter ground so it is handicap accessible, be very similar to a style of Bartles Beach or Memorial Park under construction, so it's handicap accessible, a lot longer usable lifespan. So that's the playground. The two separate beaches, oh, and if there's anything, please stop me, yeah.
So
We
I
all
would-
agree on the playground, right?
I think the playground being close to the beach is a very good idea. I have a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old, and watching a 9-year-old in the lake and a 2-year-old on the playground is kind of a challenge. So if you have kind of a central location, it seems to make sense.
I agree. I agree. I think that is, in my opinion, a easy slam dunk. The location where it's at's not ideal. This is on a flat ground. Your perspective as a parent is spot on utilization and safety for, so I think this is
I was walking around there today, is it basically the turnaround? Is that pretty much?
Pretty
the
much,
exact-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit eastward of that, there is an existing tree that's there, and we would need inspection on that tree. But that would be the understanding, is near our maintenance shed that's really flat. It's near the beach. That was kind of my thought behind it, behind the location for it.
because that maintenance building would be gone.
That
Because
maintenance-
it's
yeah.
relocated into a different part. It's moving up
Correct.
by the
Yep.
food truck area, I guess. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So what type of surface is envisioned for that playground?
PIP that's poured in place, what that does is allow wheelchair stroller access to it. That's that rubberized flooring similar to Bartles and Memorial Park, and that does meet ADA compliancy.
Rubberized?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mulch and like rubber chips do not meet handicap accessible requirements.
So we could just check that one off as we all agree.
Okay.
I think I'm fine with
Yeah.
the playground.
Could you just repeat what you said, because I didn't really catch it, and maybe just, I'm having a little hard time hearing.
No, I'm sorry about that. So poured in place is PIP, that's that rubberized flooring. Stuff like mulch for playground bases does not meet handicap accessibility standards. So like your wood chip surface on a playground, that would not be compliant with handicap standards.
So you're saying it would be a poured surface, like a concrete surface, or?
The rubberized flooring.
Oh, okay.
So that squishy rubber that we have at Bartles and proposed for Memorial, it would be the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Nope, that's fine.
So I think, we agree that that's a component we would want to keep.
And how I would label that is handicap accessible playground is how I would really label it. I don't have a concept to show you of a playground, but that's kind of the large scale conceptual style that I'm kind of approaching with this. Now, location wise, hopefully that location makes sense, but if there's any issues, please let me know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'm prepared right yet today to say the locations are exactly what
Oh,
we want.
absolutely.
Because, this is the first time we've really had a chance to look at it and see. But I think that it's important to have some changes with the playground setup. And I definitely think it needs to be handicapped accessible, so.
Next is two separate beaches is what currently exists down there. It is our east and our west beach. Those are two separate swim areas that are separated by rentable boat lifts, the existing bait shack, the existing boat ramp, and just kind of like I suppose, undisturbed area or grassy area between the two beaches. Based on occupancy and the failing infrastructure on the existing boat ramp and the bait shack, what I've done in this concept is take those boat lifts sections that were very centric to the beach, move them to the east side so we can have an uninterrupted swim area. This would include the removal of the existing bait shack and boat ramps and have a sandy surface along the entirety of the east and west beaches, thus creating one contiguous beach.
So I have a question about one continuous beach. So you're visioning one large, what do you call them, buoy markers, like swim zone, one
Yep.
large swim zone that would go from west to east, wherever you did the whole thing?
Pretty
It'd be
much, yeah.
One big,
Yep.
okay. So I think we should get to the boat lifts later, because that's a separate bullet item, but I think removing those, I mean, I think that's one of the values of this particular park is to have a beach, like a real nice beach. That's why I think we get a lot of visitors, so I like the idea of one beach.
Eric, it seems sort of
I agree.
self-evident to me that it's better, but are there any downsides, or any pluses to having two separate beaches that we're not thinking of?
I mean, there could be a number, maybe splitting demographics, like if there's younger kids that are playing on one beach, maybe that's where the kid-centric one is or where the family-based one is. I'm not quite sure. Right now, it's basically shade. If someone prefers shade, they're more than likely going to be going on the east beach, is what I see.
Yep.
But then I also do see a lot of younger age groups, like younger children favoring the East Beach as well. And I think that's because it's a little bit smaller of a beach, maybe easier for parents to keep an eye on some of the kids over there. And it's not as large as the West Beach. But that's kind of hard to say.
I would venture to say that I would agree with you that the east is more popular with younger kids. I think it's the pier. They like jumping. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my guess.
Yeah. That is proposed to continue as well, except we will have a new swim pier this year that is staying on the east side just because of water depth as well. That's actually shallower area on the east end than the west end.
So if I can add on the one thing we are giving up that I have heard from people is I know quite a few people have missed having gas.
Having what?
Be able to get gas on pulling up and getting gas on the lake. So you have to gas up before you pull your boat in, or if you need gas, you got to bring your own, hanging over the lake and have your own pumps and whatnot for putting gas in. So we are giving up the bait shack, which may have a possible place in the concession stand, depending on how that rolls. But there will be, then we are foregoing ever returning with fuel. So I just want to make sure that is brought up as just a conscientious decision that we would be making then.
That is a valid input. Now, what I don't have information on or verification on is if we're still permitted to have fuel access down there. I'm not quite sure, actually. And that's not a question that I've looked into. What is required for the city to operate fuel access and fuel pumps at the beach? I don't know. That question hasn't come up, at least to me yet, and hadn't considered providing that option.
And I don't know where we all would place it on a priority list, honestly. I just want to bring it up as it had been a point of discussion in past time. No one's brought it up recently. But when it first went away,
Yeah.
everyone, well, because riparian owners in particular were talking about the fact that now they're hanging over the lake, pouring in their own
Yeah.
water, pumping it in or whatever. And so it was just, like I said, no one has brought it up in recent
How long
times.
ago did it disappear?
That would have been 2019, I believe, with the
Yeah.
removal of the restaurant.
Recently.
What I would say is if that was to be pursued, I would very much favor to have them near the boat launch, and the reason being is I want to keep motorboat access centric to the west side. I really
agree.
do not want to commingle swimmers and motorboat traffic. I want to keep them as separated as possible, if that were to be done. But interesting, I mean, that really hasn't come up to me either, so I can do some more research on it. But I would think that there may be permitting required for it, but I haven't done research.
Well,
I
and
would-
don't-
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jacob.
I would venture to say, a couple years ago, my wife and I took a boat from one end of Castle Rock Lake all the way to the other end and back on one tank. I mean, you'd really have to go full bore on Rock Lake all day
Yeah.
to burn through one tank of gas. So it seems like, I mean, bigger lakes, I think it makes far more sense, but Rock Lake is 1,300 acres.
I agree. I just wanted to bring
Yeah.
up that it had been an offering in the past.
And I guess I'd like to add to that, if people are kind of pouring, and it's getting into the lake, that's not good either.
Oh, I wasn't implying this, pouring it
Oh.
into the lake, but you do have to bring your gas cans out to your pier and
Oh,
then
I
use
see
a
what you're
pump to
saying.
get it in. So it's no I mean, every individual is having to do their own. Because
Okay.
people who are riparians don't pull their boat out to gas up.
Okay, all right, thank
They
you.
just do it from the pier.
I have a question, and that is if the beaches are combined, how much of a difference in terms of the actual amount of, footage would we be losing between, like if the beaches were kept separately as compared to combining, is there a loss in the actual amount of beach space? And how much would it be?
Could you clarify a little bit, I suppose?
Okay, well-
Loss of beach space?
Well, I mean, how many feet differential would it be if the beaches were combined as opposed to if they were kept separately? Are we actually having less swimming space or comparable, you know what I'm saying?
This would be a drastic, I wouldn't be able to provide you a number off the top of my head, but this would be a drastic increase in swimming space.
An increase in, okay,
A drastic increase. I mean, I don't know if I can say double, but at least adding a third is my thought. And that's an assumption, but it is a large increase in swimming space.
okay, thank you.
So I think one of the risks that I'm kind of thinking, it's coming to my head, is that there had been some concerns with riparian owners right on the south side of South Ferry with sand migration. And so I think that would be just something we'll have to make sure, because their shorelines have had a lot of sand drift, and it's a lot shallower over the course of years. So that would be something that I'm sure there will be some interest in understanding impacts on that. And would there be a possibility, or is there something with that swim pier or something, again, is to mitigate that all flowing down that direction?
Sure.
So just something that I think we'll have to be able to answer.
Yep, that was considered. With the increase in beach space, you are going to have increased sand wash off and erosion potentially. What the best mitigation method for that is, I don't know. Although there are methods for mitigating it. I did want to make that at least known so that it is done within a design process for here. And I have a couple examples that could be provided. I know some of the things that we have been discussing at the Bartles Beach one is riprap shoreline to retain a little bit, kind of like a washboard effect rather than just washing along a sandy beach. What that looks like, I don't quite know, but I would at least like to see engineered designs if this concept moves forward. So it would be an understanding that there would be more sand on the beach, thus more sand potentially migrating off of the beach. And I would like to see some form of capture of it, I guess, for lack of a better term. Do the piers have something that could be installed on them that would create kind of a barrier or a wall? I'm not quite sure, but it would be something that I would like to see included in a design.
And I think there was a suggestion by someone at one point about maybe creating some swales. Swales, is that the correct word?
Swales, plantings, retention-based, kind of something similar along that. So instead of having one large beach, maybe you have some planting spaced sporadically through it. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want me to kind of continue moving forward and we can discuss each bullet point?
Well, the swales wouldn't negate a single beach, right? I mean, it would just, I think, I think we're all, yeah, right. But I guess if we're kind of all in favor of unifying the beach, right, rather than having two separate beaches, or not, or.
I am in favor of one continuous beach. I think it's a great
Same
idea.
here.
I love Ripley Park in Cambridge. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous park. It feels like summer, I guess is the best way to say it. And I would like to see that here.
I think I am. I'm still thinking about it.
And you don't, of course, you don't have to make the determination
Yeah.
right now at this point, but maybe perhaps as we go through this, fleshing out each topic at least provides you guys a little bit more direction and understanding. You can dwell on it until the next meeting and then maybe have a little bit more of a direction or understanding or opinion at the next meeting.
We definitely need a little more shade in some of the beach areas, though. It gets hotter than a pepper sprout down there.
So we do, I would like to retain as many trees as possible. However, with a continuous beach, it would be hard without designated planting locations to have shade. I don't know if I would be in favor of having more installed infrastructure along the beach. What I mean by that is having like a large sunshade or something, I don't know if I would be in favor of that. I kind of like to retain some natural elements of the park. I think installing additional infrastructure is not something that I would really like to pursue, trying to keep it as minimal as possible. Retain some natural visibility of shoreline, I guess, would lack of a better term.
Although, would you be open if we end up with a larger number of trees, and I would say, I guess, pretty serious impact on shade? Would you be open to some temporary sail shades or something of that nature, just to bring, until new trees mature?
Yeah.
Or is that still not something that you'd be comfortable with? I'm just trying
If
to
it's
see where
a
you're.
temporary solution, I think that could be something. I'd have to see some designs and some elements first before I really have an understanding. However, maybe having some designated planting locations I'm in favor of, but then again, you're gonna have small trees for a number of years before large ones. But if it's a temporary solution, potentially,
Okay.
I haven't put that much thought into it and have an opinion
Yeah.
much on it.
Okay.
Can we plant trees on the beach? I mean, are there anything that would grow well on there, or no? In that
A
sand?
palm tree, but we're not in the environment for it. It'd be pretty difficult.
I would think.
I would have to have a design designated, substantially sized section that's not sand designated for the planting of the trees. I haven't, well, I have seen some examples that are done, but I'd have to do more research into it. It may be a circumstance to where you either have a continuous beach or we have designated planting areas, potentially. Would you like me to, yeah, I'll continue down then. So currently, we have 2 shelters. We have one small shelter that's on the west beach, and we have one large shelter that's on the east beach. There are no utilities to these shelters. They are purely just picnic shelters. I am retaining the location on the east end of a large shelter. I would prefer all the shelters on the beach to have the same make, model, style to kind of create, I guess you could say branding, if that makes sense. I kind of want them to look like they belong, so they all look very similar, although they vary in size. Currently, right now, our east shelter is wood, painted brown with a concrete floor and picnic tables and grills at it. The west one is a enamel metal structure with a bright teal sunshade roof on it. I would really like to have shelters available for people. So the small shelter on the west end has been replaced with the large concession shelter in the existing location of the sandbar. The large shelter on the east side does retain, like I said, the same location, but I have installed an additional shelter. Those 2 smaller shelters would not have utilities to them. These would just be designated picnic shelters, perhaps have a grill at them, have picnic table access. I will say, as we go through reservation confirming for the summer season, these are booked out every single weekend in the summer. And we continuously have to turn people down for the booking of these. I think they're nice because they create kind of a private atmosphere for parties, for families to book. And it's a feature that people, at least that I have heard, would like to see more of in the park. I think adding one additional smaller size shelter would be appropriate. Now, the smallest one on the furthest east side is where the current playground is. If that area is already disturbed and has installed playground areas, I think this would probably be the most appropriate location for it. Doesn't require removal of any trees and retains something on the east end of the beach. Perhaps if people want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the volleyball courts and the plaza area, they could book out one of these shelters, but they are extremely popular with the public.
So the 2 small shelters would basically resemble the shelter that is currently there, pretty much be the exact kind of, something very similar.
Something very similar.
Is it a canvas roof or a?
No, so these are actual, the one that's down there is shingled. It is really old. I would propose to replace that with a new design. I would like to see something, think of the same thing like on the North Boat Launch as well, or the County North Park. It's just a shelter. There's a grill there, there's no water, there's no electric, it's just a shelter. That's kind of what I would like to see for both of these, but something timber framed with some form of easily maintainable roof. But that's kind of my thought, but I would not plan on having utilities to these.
Okay, and so the small ones would be roughly the size of the current shelter that's there, but just a solid metal roof or solid? Okay.
Something like that, yeah, similar size. So what's listed We've got 900 square feet. That is an absolute approximation to the size of these. That's based on a little bit smaller actually than the existing shelter, but then we have two of them. But 900 square feet was what I roughly calculated when I went down to the park to minimize disturbance and see what would be appropriately sized for a larger family or a small party maybe.
Eric, what would help me possibly would be the current, if we had a drawing of the current setup.
That can be
In the
provided.
future,
What I could do is, do you almost want me to have a photo album available of the existing infrastructure that's down there? Would that assist?
And I'm thinking then when I look at this, I could kind of compare what's changing.
Okay.
If other people think that's.
Or possibly we should just have our next working session there at the park if that's something we can, because we can call a special meeting and actually meet there, and I think that might help us all see and feel
That's
something coming
actually,
to life.
that is a fantastic idea, and I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
And if it's a work session, if it's a work session, there's nothing on the agenda. It's specifically just discussing Sandy Beach redevelopment. So that would actually be a fantastic opportunity. I didn't consider that, so thank you, Mary. Would that kind of be the best way to approach this, honestly, is if we do schedule a work session and,
I think visualizing it, seeing it in person, I was walking around there today, kind of looking at this, seeing what kind of works, what doesn't. I was trying to walk it out as best I could. I think walking around, seeing what fits is the best way to go. And I think that going there is a great idea.
before we get too much in the weeds, and if we are already planning on having a work session, would that be kind of the direction the board would like to take this before we delve too much into the weeds on this?
I'd like to discuss this a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then
A
potentially.
little bit more, I
A
think
little
so
more
too.
discussion, yeah.
We should go through the bullet list and kind
Sure.
of get initial thoughts and perspectives and then decide if we need to gather more information in any way, shape, or form before we have our working session. That might help us
Sure.
to then move our thinking and our decision-making
Great.
along. Be my recommendation.
I do have a small request. Is there a chance that we could call like a 3-minute recess here as I move through this list? If that would be allowed?
Yeah.
What?
Like a 3-minute recess here just for a
Sure.
moment?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
I will. I'll do it.
If we're ready to continue the conversation, I can start next with volleyball courts. So currently in the park, we do have 5 volleyball courts. They were previously located where the boat launch is now. They have since been relocated to the stormwater management basin in the parking lot. That is by design a temporary solution, or was a temporary solution to still providing the volleyball courts. They're very disconnected from the park. The biggest public correspondence that I have had regarding this project, with the exception to the restaurant, is the location of those volleyball courts. The residents, or at least the correspondence that I've received, drastically prefers them to be included on the beach interior of the park. There are 4 currently outside of the park that are used for league play. I propose to have 4 installed interior of the park. The area on the west beach that's there is the least amount of tree disturbance and land disturbance that would be required to install them. Now, there are 5 existing volleyball courts in Sandy Beach. There's 1 currently interior of the park. I see very, very minimal play on that. It is in a shaded area by oak trees. There's acorns on it. It's very disconnected from the beach. It's really not used. I would almost prefer that just to be uninterrupted green space within the park. I don't see the use for it. The only time that I have seen use is if for some reason a net is broken or a post is broken on the existing ones, that it's used as a spare or backup. In my opinion, and what I've heard from people, 4 would accommodate the usage, and they would all be contiguous together on the beach itself.
I had some concerns actually about the volleyball. So I've been talking to people about it, and they said that the new volleyball courts, the biggest problem they have is drainage. It's like playing in mud. Obviously, I assume there's asphalt underneath them.
No, that is
Sand.
that is actually sand and engineered soils. That's actually it was designed to retain water. So, I mean, it's doing really, really well for water retention and drainage, but it's doing really, really bad for being usable volleyball courts. Like I said, they are temporary solution to still providing that recreation opportunity, but it's a terrible location for volleyball courts.
So my, like, about a month ago, I was going over like the differences. There's like two parks. There's active parks and there's passive parks. And I would say that active is Wallace, Rotary, Fayetteville, and Brookstone. Passive are Tyranina, Commons, and Sandy Beach Park. I would say
That's a good way, that's a good representation to look at it.
so. That's like you're out there, you're enjoying nature, you're enjoying the water, you're swimming. You're being with nature in passive parks. And my thought is if 4 volleyball courts, and I would assume some very bright lights would.
I'm not proposing lights for them currently. I thought they would actually be somewhat intrusive to the park. When this league play is happening, it's during the summer. There is, at least from what I think, enough light. I don't think it would be justifiable to install lights to specifically light the volleyball courts here.
'Cause I think like sitting on the beach watching the sunset is a very cool
Yep.
way to spend a summer night.
I agree. That was by design to not include lights
They
there.
didn't have any lights in the former ones that used to be in this
Correct.
location.
No
So
lights.
we've
'Cause
never had
there's
lights
lights
for
right now,
volleyball
correct.
courts. No lights. There
But right
hadn't-
now there's lights though.
No, there's just residual lighting from the parking lot, but no
No.
designated lighting for them.
I guess my main concern is if we all kind of view Sandy Beach as a passive park and we put elements of an active park in it, it feels like we're kind of towing a line.
I agree, and this is a large amount of beachfront to accommodate for volleyball.
Seems like, it looks like it's roughly half of the beach.
Yeah, it is a sizable amount. Now, these are actually pulled back from the existing beach, away from the lake.
Yeah.
So they are ideally having some, I suppose, sunbathing areas for the beach and just general beach use. You said passive recreation. So I pulled them as far away from the beach as comfortably possible while still retaining them as a feature of the beach. But it is a substantial amount of space within the beach. So do we have to provide them? No. Do we have a user base that currently does? Yes.
Because in my thought process, 4 volleyball courts kind of belong in Wallace, Rotary, or Fayetteville, because they're the active parks, I would say, in my opinion. And I feel like we had talked about how the east side is the most popular part because of the trees. And it's nice to go and sit in the shade, watch your kids play. With volleyball courts, there's going to be no shade. It's going to be open to the sun. And I don't, is Lake Mills big enough to make this giant piece of land that these 4 volleyball courts are going to sit on? I feel they'll be sitting empty the majority of the day.
So when we do go back to before the boat launch was built, there were 4 in that location. They were regularly used, that I can say at least. Is it enough to justify the space that they take up on the beach, though? That's really determination for you guys. Is it a priority to accommodate 4 volleyball courts?
2 questions. First, are they currently sand?
They're all sand.
And then what alternatives, if we wanted to provide the community with 4, do we have another place to put them?
So
They would have to be sand volleyball courts.
Right, so would we have to truck sand in somewhere else?
If they're going to another location, absolutely, there'd have to be a designated spot for them.
Is that a huge undertaking to do that?
It's larger than the undertaking would be if they were installed on a beach here, because we're already building additional beach space. What these would be is have a strap perimeter on them, but there would be permanently installed posts on the beach for the nets. So there would be 8 posts installed, 2 per court, but there wouldn't be like a border or a perimeter sectioning them off or anything. They would just be outlined for the court parameters with a strap.
Off the top of your head, Eric, do we have other parks that would be a good place to accommodate these, that have surface area? I know this is sort of a sudden.
I don't want to interrupt. Well, I guess I'm interrupting. But so earlier we talked about Fayetteville and there's an unused volleyball court. So just walking over there, if the main problem that all these, I'm not a volleyball player, if the main problem was the water and we put volleyball courts at Fayetteville where there is already currently a volleyball court, they would fit.
They would.
But I obviously people would prefer to go to the beach over not the beach, but I also think people would prefer to sit under a shade tree as opposed to in an empty volleyball court at the beach.
That's the difficult question that I came to as well. I think you would lose a lot of court users if it was not at the beach.
Correct.
I agree.
So I think this is one area that I feel I have had a lot of input on, people interested in having on the beach volleyball. I don't know that we need 4. And I was speaking to someone who has participated in rec league volleyball on the beach and also inside. And this person's perspective is that he felt that the number of participants has been decreasing over time. Now, is it decreasing because the amenities on Sandy Beach have not been as great given our transition period? Or is it just that the sport isn't as much interest, people are playing pickleball or maybe other things, or, younger, it's mentioned even the younger generations have fewer and fewer people are joining. So I think this is one area that I would think would be interesting to reach out and gather some data from somebody who actually runs volleyball, like the volleyball rec league or the league that plays down here at this beach, do some inquiries on the people that are playing and ask for their perspective. I think if we had 2, they would come. If we had 3, they would come. If we had 4, I don't know if there are enough participants. So it's a little bit of how much we wanted to designate. We have had 4 in this space, but the boat launch is taking up more of that space over there. So it is shifting it more to the east, to your point about taking up more, 4 of them taking up more possible user space for other things. So I'd like to learn more to make a decision on, do we keep them? If so, how many?
That's absolutely appropriate. So this was designed to accommodate how many we currently have, and I did remove that one. I really don't think that 5th one is needed, in my opinion, and just based on the location. But I don't want to remove recreational opportunities from the park. That was one of my priorities. I know if we had volleyball, people would use it, but that's exactly the question that I don't have the answer to, is how many do we realistically need? So what I can do at this point is I will reach out and perhaps get a summary from Jane Riedel, our actual recreation coordinator for the league play. Perhaps her input would help provide a little bit of guidance, and that's kind of who I would go to as well.
Have we considered putting potentially like 2 volleyball courts where that old unused volleyball court is? It feels like that would require the least tree removal. It feels like the volleyball courts on the beach is a little too much prime real estate, in my opinion, for going to the beach. And I understand you want to remove as few trees as possible as I do. I'd love to see the beach be full of trees, and if they were at a place that already has no trees, it's already at Sandy Beach, it's not, you can see the water, it feels like it'd be the least intrusive possible thing.
There is some input that I have on that. That is where our old growth oak trees are, so there's a substantial amount of acorns in that area, and that kind of limits a little bit of it. Now, the square footage alone, we wouldn't be able to accommodate an additional court there. We are kind of at capacity at that location with 1 court just based on square footage.
Okay,
It would require grading and topography changes to accommodate it.
okay.
I know we aren't touching on the parking, but is there any possibility of getting more surface area and less parking?
The parking, based on this is just an observation. The parking based on the Mead and Hunt Maine 2019 proposal had 339 general use spots, and this particular proposal that we are just discussing only has 198 or 6, I can't read that number.
198.
So I think, so we're already down, and I think that will be a point of conversation. That'll be like an impact on where, I think this plan really is maximizing park amenities.
Okay.
And then we have to figure out the balance of the parking, and some of that is, there is new parking that has been proposed or outside that marking, the mobile home park, you'll see all those slash lines is intended to be parking. And there is always the question about the Sandy Beach Road parking.
So
So, I mean, there are alternatives. It's a matter of which ones are of interest and then how many stalls we really, really do need.
that is correct. So the input that I had with some of the parking lot design was we also do want to limit as much as possible impervious surfaces and prioritize stormwater management. And that does limit the amount of usable parking stalls that we have.
And I would like to clarify, just to make sure everyone knows that this particular lakefront proposal also did at the time have a multi-use restaurant, bar, banquet facility of 7,000 square feet. So this 339 had a lot, different amenities on the beach, and so I just think that parking count is just something that will have to be resolved and figured out. Because I don't believe the 339 is probably what is needed, given we're not doing that
Yeah.
facility.
So I think what I'll do for volleyball courts then, I would not like to see 5. I think 4 is the maximum that I would be comfortable with, or the maximum that I would really allow at the beach, I suppose. Are less of them required? Sure, I think we need further input from probably Jane Riedel, and at that point I can reach out to her and see what her input is regarding them.
That'd be great.
As we move forward, the question that Jacob brought up earlier, can we combine the concession shelter and picnic area with a restroom? I would really prefer not, and I dove into it a little bit, but based on the amount of usage down there, like I said, we have hundreds of people using the restroom within just an hourly period. I think no matter what size structure we build, it still will not be big enough to accommodate the amount of restroom use down there. There's consistently a line, but what is that fine balance? That's kind of the difficult thing. What is maintainable for staff as well? This structure here, there are several versions that are as easily maintainable as possible, but I would like to see at least sandal wash stations and outdoor rinse-off showers, and then have basically as many stalls as I can comfortably fit within a restroom just to accommodate the regular park users there. And I wouldn't like to combine that with the concession shelter. Another thought as well is, like I kind of said, having handicap accessible ones at another location, that's fine, but I feel like these could be built to accommodate handicap restroom accessibility. But I do want to separate a potential picnic area or dining area from the restrooms, just because there is so much use to them. There would constantly be a line outside of those restrooms, and I just kind of want to remove that from a shelter area.
I am undoubtedly in favor of the outdoor showers and foot washing stations, just to stand off you, rinse off any E. coli or any swimmer's itch or anything like that. I think that's very popular amongst people I've talked to. As far as the concession shelter goes, the large 4,000 square foot, I would love to look into the potential of a second floor.
Okay.
Whether it be concrete, like the idea of sitting up there, looking at the
Sure.
lake, kind of just quiet day. I mean, if we already have the footprint and it's going to have a roof on it, how much more is it to add a second floor?
Sure, that hasn't been researched. I think that's valid, so I can do, and that's exactly the kind of the guidance that I'm looking for here. What can I do more that I don't have fleshed out? I can do some research on, see what that would be.
Okay, yeah, I mean, going in Madison, sitting, there's like various outdoor rooftop patios that overlook lakes, and it's a great place to be.
And that's where somebody mentioned the word branding, but in a different way earlier. I mean, this is where we also, I think, eventually need to get creative on other naming opportunities of, the second story can be a company or business sponsoring to help kind of
Sure.
get some donation money, if you will, to kind of fund something maybe more than what our budget may allow.
Because Winona Terrace, they have those like 1 foot by 1 foot blocks, and it says, "Will you marry me, Susie?" or
Yeah.
whatever. SC Johnson Wax Company sponsored this block. Something like that. I think that, it's not hideous. It's kind of cute to say you got married on top of the pavilion. And it obviously covers a lot of the cost.
Sure. So I could do further research on that. Regarding if I can stay on that shelter a little bit, I I know it's not one of the bullet points here, and we already talked about the shelters, but this reminded me, again, I don't really have, what is the use of this concession area? It could be anything. It could be a bait shack, it could be food service, it could be drink service, whatever. But one of the other things as well is I do anticipate or plan on having a section of that shelter, mainly the concession area. There would be an outdoor vending window where you can do your business from people directly on the beach. But ideally, that would be a closed-in portion of that shelter, with the thought process being that in the winter, that would be a designated warming shed or warming shelter for ice rink usage. So if you can figure 4,000 square feet, maybe 800 square feet of it, 900 square feet of it is actually sectioned off for that concession window, as well as being a heatable space for a warming shelter in the winter, with the rest of it being an open air shelter.
With the concessions, is it going to be a city employee that would operate it, or would it?
Haven't gotten that far yet. Is it a lease structure that we do a local business? Do we partner with a kayak rental service to vend out of there? Do we partner with a restaurateur or a brewery? I don't know. It has not gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
Okay, so we're actually talking maybe like a hot dog stand or something too, where they're serving food, possibly.
Potentially,
Okay.
potentially. I mean, we do have our food trucks there, but what is the purpose of this? Basically having some form of vending access, whatever that vending may be, but then also have a section closed off to the open air portion of the shelter, being a designated warming shelter. That's where those handicap restrooms that would be attached to this, like single stall ones, would come into play, because they would be heated, they would be single stalls. We would have that shelter open and accessible throughout the off-season in the winter, while we can winterize the large restroom structures. So we wouldn't have to meet that same expectation of having restrooms for the thousands of people on the beach, but we can accommodate the 40, 50, 60 people who go there for ice skating on a weekend. If you look back at some of the concept drawings for Commons Park redevelopment that were done several years ago, that was kind of the initial plan or basis for an upgraded shelter, picnic area, restroom, warming shelter in Commons Park. So that's kind of where I based the thought process off of the shelter for it.
I'm branching out a little bit. How much ice skating or winter activity is there really now with the global warming and stuff? Is this something we're...
Right now, it is decreasing, and the reason being is it is getting harder to accommodate the ice rinks. However, looking at some other structures, and this goes into Jacob's question, if I can consider this one of our bullet points, I suppose, would be the ice rinks. I need some form of perfectly flat surface to put an ice rink on. The current spot that we do it, or always have done it, is that retention area in the parking lot. It is a terrible design for making ice. It is not level, it is not straight. It is a substantial amount of labor to do it, like a very substantial amount of labor to do it. If we did have a hockey rink kit, other municipalities have used them to great success. They're easier freezing, they're easier to maintain, they're fairly reasonably priced, and then I would have to be able to justify lesser employee time to actually create and build them. And this would be a circumstance where if we build an ice skating area at Sandy Beach in the off-season, I think it would be much more of an attraction than what we currently have down there.
I just wondered.
So we are really increasing recreation opportunities, I believe, by having a ice skating area down here. The one that we have now is subpar, to be honest. And if we build a really nice one, I think we would drastically increase the amount of winter recreation. That goes into this plaza picnic ice rink area. Village of Waterford did a very, very similar setup there. And they've had great results in turnout. They have ice skate rentals in the off-season. Perhaps that's something that the concession window is used for in the off-season. There are lights over the top of it, like the pretty string lights and stuff like that. And they have hundreds of people that go there on the weekend. So currently, right now, we don't have that volume of user base in the winter, but I think we would if we did pursue something like that. Those kits do also have chillers installed in them. Granted, it seems like a bit of overkill at least, but what that does is it substantially decreases the amount of employee time and struggles that we have for currently building the ice rinks. One of the other options is to design this to not accommodate ice rinks, and we just do not have that form of recreation. We do not pursue a heated shelter down there. I think it will be worthwhile to provide recreation opportunities in the winter, but that is an option that we just no longer pursue them.
Would we continue to flood Commons Park, or would this kind of replace that?
I still would.
You would still do both? Okay.
Yep, I would still prefer to do both. This would, however, make the maintenance of Commons Park in both of them substantially easier because maintaining both and creating both is exceptionally difficult and becoming more difficult. So I think if we did have a designated area, kind of like what is designed here, and have a kit-style system, theoretically it should decrease the amount of employee time associated with building it, but I would like to have both ice rinks.
Would this simply be like kind of turn a key and it floods itself, or would it?
Kind of, yeah. So instead of spraying, like continuously spraying, those kits by design, you flood in lifts. So you flood like 3/4 of an inch at a time. It levels out and freezes. You flood another 3/4 and freezes and levels. And I don't even know how many hours of employee time it takes to spray those and create as smooth of a surface as possible. But it is a substantial amount of employee time. Reports from Village of Waterford is that they can get this up and running in a weekend, which when we build it, a spraying version, I mean, we're taking 6, 7, 8 days of 24-hour operation shifts.
With spraying, does it need to be cold? Like, I think it needs to be later in the year. Could we like flood?
It needs
this
to be
thing in
exceedingly cold, like single digits to do it.
burst or something? And
Yep.
then it would just be.
So what we could do with this kind of style is you would flood like 3/4 of an inch, let it freeze over the period of a couple days, as long as we're below a freezing point. So theoretically, we would be able to build these in early December, when currently, right now, I mean, we're waiting for single digits in mid of January.
Because I think you said that you would get a ton of phone calls of when are you going to flood Commons Park, and it was mid-January or something.
Exactly. So here, the way that I see it is this really is increasing a form of recreation because one, you're providing more adequate resources for people down there, you're making it more easily accessible, you're making it higher quality, and you're also lengthening the amount of time that it's available to people. It's really getting a hard pill to swallow to justify the employee costs for the form of recreation we're giving people based on how we're currently building them. And I don't want to not continue providing those recreation opportunities, but it is getting very, very difficult to justify the cost with how we currently do it. So that kind of describes the plaza picnic area. Now, there is something to say about picnic tables being sporadically placed throughout the park. It creates some private areas for people to just relax and sit down. However, at the same time, having a designated plaza, we could have substantial amount of picnic tables there and just potentially covered seating as well in that area. I think there's also some merit to that as well, if that's gonna be like a dining area or something like that. So it's nice to have a little bit centric. Plus, that's your park entrance area. That would be kind of like a decorative welcoming area to the park, and I intentionally pulled it closer to the parking lot so as not to interrupt like the lakefront area of it. I'm gonna couple both of the next ones together, which are the dual lane boat ramp and the bait shack. In my opinion, turning the bait shack around from the current condition that it's in would be a substantial cost. It's in very rough condition. I don't think it would warrant the expenses or need for it, especially if we do prioritize a contiguous beach. And that does also include the existing boat ramps. I did take a closer look at them to see if we could potentially use them for something. The location that they're in is smack dab within the park, so it would, again, kind of interrupt a continuous beach area. But there are cracks within the concrete. They could be used to maybe install a pier of some sorts or something. I would be in favor of removing them, just to prioritize that continuous beach and have a pier area closer to the east side. I would consider, and I'm not a building inspector or anything, we do have one on staff, but I would consider the existing bait shack to be failing infrastructure.
Oh, bait shaft, okay.
The boat ramps too, I am not in favor of encouraging boat traffic within that swim area. There is some merit if that's like an area for kayakers to put in. However, having a shallow approach beach, I feel like is almost easier to put in for a kayak to push off of the beach from. These are concrete ledges and interfaces. They really serve the purpose of that's where you attach the motorboat piers to. I don't know if they would necessarily serve a purpose if we are to retain them within the park.
I feel that by having the bait shack and the launch, it just kind of separates the beaches. You're gonna see.
I agree.
It separates the beaches. It doesn't create a continuous beach. So I think that full removal of both, it's time.
We have replacements for those. I mean, we have our new, or not new at this point, but 2021 built boat launch. That's a designated use for it. These were designed to be a boat launch for the motorboats. It would be hard to justify retaining of these, I believe. I don't think they necessarily provide a recreation opportunity in the park anymore. Questions? Otherwise, I'll continue. Right now, we have 2 kayak storage racks, one that holds 6, one that holds 8. Those are rented out at, let's see here, $60 a piece for a total of $840 in revenue for the city. These are exceedingly popular with the increase of kayaking. It is a very low-hanging fruit opportunity for us. I would be in favor of, in fact, increasing the amount of kayak storage because we actually have a wait list for kayak storage locations at Sandy Beach. They're fairly unobtrusive to the park. Now, I do not have them located on this actual concept drawing because I was kind of torn. The reasoning behind that is one consideration that I had is put them farthest east, basically on the property as possible by the eastern swim pier and boat lifts. That's where they currently are stored. Now, some issues that I've heard people say is that they have to walk through the entire park. My response to that is your kayak is stored there already. You just have a very short walk to the water to put it in. So I actually do prefer the east side of the beach for that. You're not going through the swim area. You have an easily accessible route out to the lake and don't have to paddle through the swim area. The other location is actually on the west end by the boat launch. Keep them away from the park entirely. Now, the issue here is there is no standard car parking at this location, or very minimal car parking. You actually have to have a trailer to park in that location. And the next thing is I'm necessarily not in favor of combining non-motorized access traffic with motorized traffic. That boat launch gets exceptionally busy on the weekends, and I kind of like having the thought of a quiet, sectioned in area, or basically one-off area for kayakers to access the beach. So if I were to place them anywhere on the beach, it would actually be east of the sidewalk by the proposed playground location, if that makes sense. But that is a recreational opportunity I would like to continue to provide and potentially increase.
So I have a question on that. I am not really finding the boat lift on the east.
The
to
east side?
fit the conversation. To me, I'm a little worried when I drew my little ropes for the swimming. It gets to the conversation we had about the safety with boats kind of getting close to the ropes, et cetera. And then I was trying to picture the kayaks, that having that one on the east side to me is bothersome. And it's also then getting close to the Woodland Beach swim ropes. And so I don't know, I guess I've never really liked all the boats in the middle of all of the swim sections. It's just, I think just looks like a risky situation. So we were describing the kayaks up there. I like the kayaks on the east, but not, I would put it in place of that.
Gotcha.
That lift, and I would find another place for the lift, or we go down in numbers.
Yep, so I haven't gotten to the boat lift section yet, but.
I kind of merged in with my kayak question, or kayak.
Definitely
Trying to
noted.
visualize a kayak on that east side there.
Definitely noted. So kayak storage is something that I would like to continue. Like I said, kind of low-hanging fruit. I would like to continue to offer that recreation. It's kind of passive for the city, honestly. I would also like to continue self-service kayak rentals, at least in the form of our current vendor that we have there. I've heard very positive reviews of that. So as we go towards boat lifts, if you don't mind me speaking about that for a bit. This was also another thing that I had difficulty figuring out a design for and where they best fit. It was hard for me to pack all 26 on one pier foot, I guess you could say, or pier stretch. It was very hard to accommodate that. Because if you notice on the west end, we have boat lifts both on the exterior lakeside and the interior lakeside. The more we pack onto one existing pier structure, it's very difficult to make that all work on one structure. Plus, it is heavily congested, so there is almost, I don't necessarily want to say hypocritical, because I do want to minimize the swimming traffic mixing with the motorboat traffic. But this is one of those things to where it may almost be too congested to couple them all on one pier system on the west side. So we currently have 26. That is the maximum allowed of permitted boat lists for the area. Of those 26, this kind of goes into our next conversation with fee structures. But of those 26, 25 are rentable, and that gives the city $33,000 of revenue at its current fee structure. That is a substantial source of revenue for the city, at least for the parks, but it is hard to design a pier system to accommodate those 26. I can do a little bit more research onto it, but I would be leaning in favor of potentially having them all on the west side now that I think about this concept.
You would be in favor or not?
I think I would be, if I can find a system to reasonably accommodate having those boat lifts on it on one structure.
This might be a really dumb question, but could you put it to the, I guess, south or west of the launch? Because that's still the park, isn't it? On the other side of the launch where you have could you put?
You could. We do have the stormwater outlet there, and I don't feel like there is enough frontage there to also allow access to the west side of the boat launch itself.
Okay.
I think that would be too congested for the actual boat launch.
Okay.
It would be my input. But what I can do at this point is I would like to at least find some product examples, some other marina styles or boat lift styles to work with, or pier styles, basically would be the biggest question. But I think moving them to the west side could potentially work if I find the right product. What that would mean then is that would kind of encroach a little bit onto the beach on the west side, but that would allow the expansion of the beach on the east side. So you're kind of giving up square footage on one end of the park for the beach in favor of the other, which I'm fine with, especially if we have a swim pier in that location. That also eliminates boat traffic from being around that swim pier.
Have we ever thought about, so you're the 33,000 for the 25, have we thought about doing any slips on a QR code for renting by the hour or the day? Just to provide, I know there had been some citizen feedback that, this is a city park, but the city citizens don't have a chance to dock and come up, like in this case, to this concession or the food trucks, or hang out at the park for a while and then go back on the water. So have we entertained that? And maybe that gets into your fee structure comment or conversation we have later on in the agenda.
That's absolutely valid. I think it would include a restructuring of the existing lease structure for them. If we're talking about park redevelopment and construction, that would absolutely be something to look into. Would it require the restructuring of this lease instead of long-term annual recurring leases? I know this has been a frequent conversation at Parks Board, at least within my tenure here too. Within the last 3 years, this conversation has come up. So one of the options then is, do you decrease the amount of boat lifts but increase the fees associated for them, is one of the questions you could ask. So you're not necessarily losing revenue, but you are losing the amount of boat lifts, because it is difficult to accommodate the 26 of them if we are to move them to the west side. So that would be an option. I do currently think that I know that our boat lift fees currently are very low and can be reassessed, and the fee structure can be the lease structure can be reassessed as well. So I think that's a valid conversation to have, potentially reducing or retaining the amount of boat lifts, but raising the fees for them. If you want to prioritize beach access rather than motorboat access on the lifts, you could provide the recommendation, like I said, to decrease from 26 to 15 or 12. That would be within your discretion to recommend.
The issue I have with that would be, I think a lot of people like to be out on the lake and then come in with their boats and use the beach and, the food stands and the rest. So I'm with you on having more beach, but I don't know how to accommodate the day boaters.
Yeah, because right now they're pulling, a lot of it pull up between, right by the swim ropes, which is between the Woodland Beach swim area and the Sandy
Anywhere
Beach
they
swim
can.
area. And then that's in that 50, that
Yep.
ordinance we found, and it's in that 50-foot. And so that's where they park now, is they just all anchor. Because there isn't a slip spot for anyone to, we don't have a solution for that.
I
That's why I was
strongly,
just asking.
I strongly agree with you on the idea of like having people have access to Sandy Beach. I mean, obviously, there's some changes going on at Bartles where less boats will be coming. People need to use the restroom. If the concessions sell ice or sunscreen and maybe they gotta just restock or something, for the day, it is good to have access to it. And it is, right now, people are just kind of pulling up right next to the ropes. So, and if the city can obviously benefit for $5 for, 10 minutes, and something like that, and they just scan their phone, and whether the city has a pay pass.
Definitely something to consider. The biggest question that I have is congestion. And what I mean by that is, if we are to prioritize that for recreation, we would have to be very cognizant on how much space we are dedicating for it. And in order to enforce something easily and redesign something easily, having a designated, easily defined location for it, I think would be the best way to do it. And based on the current layout, if you were to accommodate those 26 boat lifts and like a pull-up additional spot, we would have to look at decreasing our designated beach area. But that's, like I said, kind of a priority for your guys' discretion.
So Mary had mentioned just west of the boat launch, potentially as an area for the lifts. Would that be a possible spot for
Piers?
drive in, get your ice, use the restroom?
Sure.
Take off? Because
Sure.
you said you didn't want to do it because that's the stormwater runoff and it
There
obviously
is
would be too
still
congested. But
a slight area for it. I don't know how many boats could safely fit in that location. But of course, beaching a boat is inherently going to take substantially less space than accommodating a full pier system with boat lifts. But perhaps that would be the designated location for it. That would be in line with keeping the priority of not crossing swimmer traffic with boater traffic.
And I meant a pier, not lift, because if you're just pulling in, I wasn't thinking lifts, I was thinking
Yep.
just a pier.
Now-
So when you have people who are out and about and they want to come in and pay.
So you're saying like temporarily more, basically, for the most
Yeah,
part?
so they actually just come, it's like they have it in Madison, you can pull up to go get a bite to eat at Edgewater, and you pull up to the pier and then you can pay, and you're like renting your spot while you go eat, and then you come back out, and then off you go in the water. And so it's just more renting a pier spot, not a lift. I wasn't thinking lifts, because lifts is overnight, and that's a different, I was just thinking, is there an option for people to come in and park?
Sure.
In order to use the amenities, and then off they go? And I know there's some risk on how do you ensure that they don't come on Friday because they're visiting a friend and keep their boat there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, it's not a permanent thing. So I think the policing of that could be a challenge. Like, there's some issues, but it's just something, while we're talking about lifts and piers, that's something I wanted just to ask that we think about and talk about as a group.
Absolutely. So now in our currently structured, those boat lifts and those pier systems are accessible only for the boat renters. It is not publicly accessible pier sections. So if that's something that you'd like to prioritize, saying this is a mooring pier, we have to accommodate the space for it on the beach, but we currently don't have it, and I think that is something you guys, I think it would be warranted. But it would kind of come down to you guys, what would you like to see prioritized? Do we decrease the amount of beach space? Do we reconfigure the boat lifts? Do we accommodate a public mooring pier? I would have to see it kind of relayed out on a concept to kind of how it would work.
And I don't know if given that we only have 26 designated for boat lifts, I don't know that I was not thinking we could, I was thinking we have 26 spots, whether they're a lift or a pier spot.
I don't think that's the case. I think they're specifically
Not adding another
lifts.
third structure for more boats. I was thinking we have I'm just thinking in my head, we had two structures. One could have some boat lifts on it, probably not 26, maybe that's the half. And the other X number are just pier for utilization during the day, like rent a, come in, I'm saying come and go, kind of a QR code situation. I'm thinking that would still equal 26 max. So then you don't, because I see your point about trying to get the boats to be in a safe place and not jamming all the boats so that it takes up the swimming. I don't like kids having to swim between the beach and a boat pier. I don't like.
So
think
for
that's safe.
clarification, with our 26 right now, are you currently suggesting that we have approximately half being a rental structure and then the other half being publicly accessible on like a fee type basis?
Yeah, as an example, I don't know how you make that financially work, and is that what we want? But that's, I was,
Are they the same size, Eric? I mean, if you're talking
Boat lifts approximately.
about,
No, the boat lifts.
I wouldn't, I mean, I'm throwing out ideas while we're talking about
The
it.
boat lifts themselves, they are watercraft specific. So there are certain ones that accommodate pontoons and there's certain ones that accommodate V-hulls. It is specific to that actual renter's boat. Very frequently, or I will say every time a new renter comes, they do adjust that boat lift to fit their specific watercraft. Or very similar to their watercraft. Now, I have seen ones, I forget which lake it is, but it is in Waukesha County, to where they're not boat lifts, but they are truly slips. It's just an area where you pull your boat in, you tether to a pier section, and you walk off. So it's not a lift, it is a boat pier.
I've never launched at Sandy Beach, but are the boat launch piers where people launch their boat, park it for 30 seconds, park their vehicle, get on their boat, are those long enough to accommodate 2 or 3 on each side?
I would not be in favor of doing that, and the reason being is that's specifically for people to retrieve their vehicle or use the restroom. Let's say you're a single boater, you're a fisherman who's just by himself, he has to use the restroom, it's by design to temporarily moor your boat. I would not be in favor of having longer-term boats parked there specifically for congestion on the boat launch. There are hundreds of boats that launch there within a couple hour period.
Are we talking like long-term, are we talking like a few minutes, or?
Well, I'm thinking
a
of this
minute or
scenario, I was thinking of
something?
this scenario when you come in and I'm envisioning we have this food truck plaza and you're out on the lake and you've got there early and you want to come in and have lunch with your family. So you come out, you use the restroom, you come over here. So it's a few hours and you might play at the beach for a little bit or run over to the park and play in the playground. And then off they go. Well, then another family's coming in because they want to do X, Y, and Z in the park. And so I've just received, like, over time, people saying, man, there's nowhere to go. You can't get to the beach if you're on the lake. So once you launch, there's nowhere to bring your boat to actually use the amenities at the beach. Other than you shimmy up in that section between Woodland Beach swimming and ours. A lot of boats push up in there. And I know for us, for kayaking, we go all the way around and we're in the spot you don't want us to go. I go past the launch and then I shove up on the shore on that far west side because there's nowhere else to go.
Okay.
That's one of the cons of the one big beach. I mean, trying to find an inlet to get yourself onto the beach.
I do agree with Mary. I think you'd almost have to have something separate to make that accommodation. I really would not be in favor of allowing mooring of basically any kind with the exception of retrieving your vehicle or using the restroom for the boat launch piers. They're specifically for boat launching and retrieval, and I really would like to maintain it that way. So if temporary mooring or hourly mooring is something that's decided, I think we either make the space for it, or have a designated structure. So what I can do at this point is I will request that this concept be slightly altered to have the sidewalk on the east side terminate near to the playground instead of going to this boat lift section. Take this existing boat lift section, move it over to the west side and see how that would work in relation to the beach while still accommodating 26 boat lifts. And then it can also have it done so that it accommodates approximately 13 or half of those boat lifts for rentable, and then also have a section for temporary mooring, I guess you could say. I could have that concept redone to reflect that.
And I think we have to think about I know you had mentioned 33,000, so, I mean, part of it's also financially, how would it work, and is that what we want? I mean, I'm just trying to, I was just going off of input, so.
I definitely see the validity in what you're talking about. My only thought is not necessarily west versus east for the boat lifts. I just want it to be the one continuous beach, and obviously if they're bookend on each side by lifts, then that's fine with me. If it's all on the west side or all on the east side, that's fine with me. The most important priority to me personally is the one continuous beach. And if they're all, I love the idea of the lifts being next to the boat launch, all the motors are there.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's obviously gonna be the most used, but, so I guess that's my only my number one priority is that continuous beach.
Okay. I think this one does warrant further conversation as well. I think this is something to where I would definitely be much more visual on this. So both like to see it as a concept, and I think this will be probably one of the largest things that Parks Board will be fleshing out as we move forward, just based on the user base for the boat lifts. They are highly requested. They are treasured by the people who have them. So I think it's something that will kind of continue and be a difficult portion of this conversation. The last then is swim pier. I've got to have a swim pier on the beach. I think it is a fantastic option. That is also where the school district and recreation department have swimming lessons during the summer. Like I said, that is something that is going to be newly installed this year to replace the existing, but there always has been a swim pier at Sandy Beach. And I would continue to have that within the designated swim area. The only reason I kind of like it offset to one side is if people do want to swim, jump off the pier, they're kind of in their own little area, but they would still be within the swim area. But I would definitely like to still continue having that
I
feature.
like the idea of the swim pier being on the same side as the playground, as we were talking about earlier. You get to
Yep.
watch both kids.
That's exactly why it's on the east side.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's what I have right now. This is mostly so an introduction to this, while also stating we do have a very limited time frame for it. So my recommendation would be to plan for potential work sessions and/or special meetings, and to introduce this concept.
I had a couple of questions. So obviously the food truck plazas here, that kind of dislocates or relocates all the parked boats. Would they be like on the south side of the parking lot? Is that where they'd be relocated to?
That is one thing that's come up in conversation too. If there is the food truck plaza on the north side and fence, or I call it fence parking because they're up against a fence, but let's just say boat trailer parking, like long-term parking. These are seasonal parking spots, rented ones for the most part. So these boat owners are able to park their trailers and their boat long-term from April to October. So there are currently 35 spots available for that at $450 each. That creates a revenue of $15,750. If those were to continue to be offered at Sandy Beach, I would propose them to be on the south side of the parking lot closest to Sandy Beach Road, just so there isn't people hooking up boats and trailers near that food truck plaza, and just not disconnect basically the parking lot and park entrance to the park itself. Plus, they're going to be pulling out onto Sandy Beach Road anyways to use the boat launch. Now, one of the options as well is that a feature that we continue to have and provide at Sandy Beach would be up to your guys' discretion.
How many did you say, Eric? I'm sorry.
There's 35 currently.
35? Okay.
And does the, just north of where you were suggesting that the boats be stored, would that be trailer parking potentially? Because obviously the boat launch has, I think, 13 parking spots.
We cannot offer any more short-term boat trailer parking. That's by
Okay.
state requirement.
So those people that hypothetically show up, hook up their boat, go put it in the lake, they just park in the boat launch parking for the day.
Nope, they would park in their designated spot.
But now
So-
you'd have twice the size with a vehicle and a trailer.
Yeah, valid. I do think that requires more parking lot design. So right now, this is not to scale. The parking lot would require some redesign to accommodate that. One of the options or solutions as well is perhaps it's a resource that we provide just to trailer park owners. I know the trailer park really isn't a portion of your guys' charge or conversation, but perhaps we offer, currently right now, there's no boat parking allowed within the trailer park area, but perhaps some of those stalls would have parking available if they're a little bit larger size or lots. But it ultimately comes down to is providing seasonal boat and trailer parking a priority here? That would in turn take up your general use parking area. So do you favor park goer parking area, or do we redesign the lot to accommodate trailer parking? I will say the existing parking lot, currently it takes up like a third of the parking lot is boat trailer parking. Is that a space we're willing to accommodate or not? It's a difficult question.
Is this more parking that's currently, than it is currently there right now?
Yes, but it's kind of hard to define our existing parking. This is substantially more parking than is currently down there. The other most correspondence that I've had is that there just isn't enough parking at the beach just for general beachgoers is perhaps the most frequent correspondence I hear. So with 198 stalls, I'll say that's significantly more than we have currently right now. What that difference is, I wouldn't be able to say off the top of my head.
Okay.
According to this report from 2019, there are currently 127 general
Perfect.
use parking spots.
Thank you for providing that. That's what we currently have, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, roughly.
I'm ignorant of these things. Is that common for people to have long-term boat trailer parking at?
From my understanding, it was from a rollover of when the city purchased this property when it was privately owned. I think it was an accommodation for basically the private park users, being the trailer home park users. There always has been boat lifts and there always has been boat trailer parking. So I think it was a continuation from when it was private. From my understanding, I don't believe the city has increased the amount of trailer parking stalls, although I could be wrong. If they have, it was a significant time ago, but there has been 35 spots provided for a long length of time.
Yeah,
So
I'd
you-
have to think about that.
So you were talking about how these are seasonal rentals for the boats. Are we offering them the opportunity to store their boats there in the winter? 'Cause
Yes.
Okay, and is that for the entire city or just these 35 boats?
It's a totally separate wait list.
Okay.
There are people who only store their boats there in the winter, and there are users who only store them there in the summer. I will say out of those 35 this year, we had 4 stored there during the winter.
Eric, I thought we only had like 6 places for boats to be stored, or am I thinking boat lifts?
Boat lifts. You're thinking boat lifts. So these are boats on trailers parked in the parking lot for a season. So I think this year we had 4, maybe 5 stored there throughout the entire season. That's from October to April. And then during April to October, the active boating season, there's a lengthy wait list for people to be on them to achieve one of those parking stalls for convenience. So the summer usage is substantially more popular than the winter storage. The thought process being, no one's down in the parking lot anyways, we might as well have an opportunity for revenue if someone would like to store their boat here. But like I said, there was 4 to 5 there stored this year.
But we would charge for car parking too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to, I guess what's next steps here? Have we kind of gone through the amenities that currently exist, right?
Yes. So what I would need at this point, I think since this is the introduction, even though we do have a short time to work on this, would it be worthwhile to look at scheduling a work session sometime in early May prior to your next meeting, or would you like to do it after that next meeting? I think it would be worthwhile to probably have an on-site visit prior to your next meeting so you have a basis of understanding for it. The information that you've provided me kind of gives me a general understanding on some other things that I need to focus on for updating this concept, and I can provide that. Generally, from what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's further information we need on amount of volleyball courts, the location of the boat lifts and the quantity of boat lifts, and the potential installation of like a temporary short-term mooring solution. Other than that, is it fairly agreeable, the layout and concepts that you have here for a working document?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what I will do prior to the next meeting. My suggestion then was kind of digest the information here, familiarize yourself with this concept, maybe form some opinions on some of the information that you have, and let's plan a potential work session either more than likely early May would be my thought. So like first week in May is kind of what I would shoot for.
And you're feeling at Sandy Beach?
I think it would be worthwhile.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be open to the public to attend if they're
It would be, they
interested.
can absolutely attend.
Right, okay.
I don't think we've ever had a work session out and about. I think there have been for Milton Street design potentially. But one of my thoughts is, yes, that would be a publicly attended meeting. However, public input is not permitted at a work session that is specifically for the board attendees. But it will be advertised just like a normal meeting would be, and public would be encouraged or likely attend.
Okay. So our next scheduled Parks Board meeting is May 12th, so would it make sense to do it the Monday before?
That would be my thought. I'd have to look at some calendars and see what we have for timing, but that would be my thought, is probably the first Monday, and then you have a general understanding prior to your next meeting. Now, we would be required to post that as an agenda, same notification period required. We would have to post it at least 24 hours in advance and publish it. So what I'll do is probably publish it several days prior, saying there's a work session for Parks Board at Sandy Beach.
I won't be here that Monday. I'll be coming back from out of town that night.
What we can do at this point then is I can shoot around a couple dates, mainly being that Monday or focusing on that week prior to the next Parks Board meeting, and we'll see what works best for everyone. Does that work?
That sounds reasonable. And just to clarify, so we have the May 12th meeting, the regular Parks meeting, Parks Board. We have the June 9th Parks Board meeting. And then whatever we come up with, we need to vote and finalize at our July 14th meeting. So is that's correct, right?
That is
Yeah,
correct,
okay.
unless you call a special meeting to order in addition to those scheduled meetings.
Okay. Which I think, we had talked about an opportunity for more public input, and maybe next time on the agenda, we could talk about that if we want to have a separate public hearing or what we want to do, because I think it will be real important to have public input and have people have enough time to kind of take a look at what we've conceptualized and proposed and digest it a little bit before they have a comment, before they make a public comment. So maybe we could talk about that next time.
Sure.
Okay, so I guess we're moving on then to the Parks Fee Schedule review.
All right, so you guys have been provided the 2023 and 2024 schedules. Included here is shelter reservations and everything that you see. If you need another copy, I can provide one for you.
Need one?
It wasn't attached.
I got, there's one.
I think I printed it.
I might have.
Somebody need one? Everybody got theirs?
Oh, I might have it
I
in
have
the
one.
briefcase, I just have to look.
So that's 2023
Oh,
and
thank you.
2024 right there, so.
Okay, thank you. We've got it here.
So my thought here is, as we develop our budget process, that's finalizing the budget kind of end of June area, I just need to know if there's any areas specific to that Parks Board would like to see increased or further assessed. I will say that athletic fee preparations and rentals were reassessed in 2024, so that is recently updated, yes, 2024. Those were updated, as well as the boat launch fees and seasonal permits. Those are at the state maximum, so we wouldn't be able to do anything specifically with the boat launch fees. So we're looking at everything with the exception of those. So it leaves us mostly with boat lift rentals, fence parking, boat lift storage, everything like that. So what I would need from Parks Board is you can absolutely make an emotion to recommend something tonight. However, what I need is kind of some direction from you guys, because I would like to do some further research and come prepared for the next meeting saying, this is what I've seen other municipalities have for some of these fees, and we can reassess at that point. Priorities for the last couple of weeks have been Sandy Beach redevelopment processes, but if there's no interest in looking at shelter reservation fees and perhaps just the boat lifts, I can focus my priorities a little bit by just looking at boat lift fees and doing some research, but open to your guys' direction.
Well, so as far as shelter rentals, I feel, I mean, they all feel like a fair price. I feel it should just be one rate for regardless of the shelter. Kind of feels like the simpler the better in my thought. I've called around a little bit. I know that the comps I got on boat slips is about 2,500 a slip. I feel that a dramatic increase in price. I know that there's a waiting list that's 20 years long. I know if I signed up, my kids might get a boat slip. I think a dramatic increase is due. I know that I got some numbers, I believe 10 out of 26 of the boat slips are for people who are out-of-state residents, which seems like a very significant number. Nearly half are out-of-state residents. And as far as Sandy Beach, I think we're headed towards the parking, paying for each car per
Correct.
person.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to address that at all. But yeah, I would say $80 to $100 for each shelter, but I would say one continuous price throughout the city. And I don't really see the necessity of charging more if there's a tournament or a game at Wallace Park.
The reasoning behind that is kind of, those do have a substantial amount of maintenance needs associated with them specifically. So there's a big difference between a family renting it out for a birthday party or something like that versus 800 to 900 to 1,000 visitors on a weekend. So if it is for a tournament, it's
So it basically
ideally to
costs us more for the.
pretty
okay,
much.
okay.
Now, the next thing is,
Back to what I said.
these have been, when we look at the large shelter cost versus a small shelter cost, there's a substantial difference between them. The small shelter really is more of a sunshade picnic spot versus like a true picnic shelter. So what I can do is I can come prepared with kind of my recommendations on reassessment. If the goal is to kind of keep it under $100, but keep it contiguous,
For
that's
for
fine.
the smaller ones,
Yeah.
I would say $50 is fair. But
Yeah,
for any of the
okay.
larger ones with solid structure, I would say $80 to $100. But if
Okay.
it was continuous throughout. I'd
Sure,
like to see
that makes sense.
City and pricing, I guess.
I can come prepared for that. Now, would it be fair to say that Parks would like me to focus on comparing and contrasting existing boat lift fees and come prepared for that for next meeting with a recommendation?
I think that's a yes.
Okay. I will do that. I'll come prepared with a recommendation based on research from other municipalities and other rentable boat lists for you guys.
Just so, Jacob, you found that these are quite cheap then?
These are
stunningly cheap.
Yeah.
These are without doubt, based on my prior research, this was 2022 was the last time I think this conversation came up. I would have no reason to believe that other boat lift facilities have went down in price. But at that time in 2022, we were without doubt the cheapest ones that I had found based on my research.
I mean, the circumference of the lake is roughly 8 miles. We have very limited access, and I know that I called the marina in Madison, and a slip without a lift is $2,000, just to park your boat sitting in the water. And I feel we're selling something that's high-end, it's very, very, very high demand, and obviously we have expenses as well. So I would almost suggest doubling the rate.
Noted. If there's no objections, then what I will do is I'll come prepared with those recommendations, or recommendations based on research at the next meeting, specifically for boat lifts.
I would also suggest, so if we were to continue, I'm kind of on the fence about the fence parking, no pun intended. But if we're to do that, I would recommend raising the price, but that would include a launch permit, something along those lines. And like, when we look at the parking in Sandy Beach parking lot, if there was a trailer, I'd like us to consider possibly saying you can do it, if we're charging $5 a car, charge $10 for a car with a trailer, if that was a possibility. Because if they're gonna take up 2 spots, give them the option, possibly.
My opinion on that is you almost have to have designated trailer parking stalls versus single car parking stalls, just based on parking lot design. I have encountered this before when we did boat launch design for the DNR, that it's very, very hard to accommodate both of them by design.
Yeah, because just looking at the map we had earlier, like the south side of the parking lot, if those were diagonal, they could accommodate boat and trailer, it could get in and out, and if you did
But
charge.
I think we are governed by how many official boat.
That is
The
correct,
DNR has
yep.
only allowed us 15.
So
Because
okay.
that's all we
Yeah.
are allowed, so we can't do more in the parking. It actually has to be no boat trailer parking in our
Yep.
parking lot for
So
cars.
So I'm
Yeah,
glad
it's-
Mary
it's a
said that we are
governed-
required by the state not to offer any more boat trailer parking, or designated boat trailer parking, I should say.
That's their way of trying to limit the number of people who use a certain amount of lake.
You're
area.
correct.
It doesn't work, of course, because people park everywhere else.
So,
Because there are over 80 spots, I believe, over 80, 85, 83, something on the north side.
Yeah.
And so that plus ours, plus whatever else is designated, the other small launches, that's the
Yep.
amount designated for the lake. And so
Okay.
we were given 15 for this particular area.
well stated. It's calculated by the state through an algorithm based on navigable water body.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So then you will be doing some additional research and coming back next month on some of these questions, right?
That is correct. So I will update that concept plan, come with my recommendations for those fee structures.
Okay, very good.
I would like to at least, oh, I'm sorry, if we want to continue the next agenda item.
I'm sorry. So I think we're on to creating the next meeting's agenda items, correct? Okay.
For the budget creation process, I definitely need an answer during the May meeting to finalize these fee structures. That would be the latest I'd be comfortable with it.
Okay.
Now, I would suggest that we continue with, the thought process here is that the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan will include some of your recommendations from Sandy Beach. For the interest of time, I think we stay focused on the Sandy Beach development just due to the time constraints, with the understanding that as soon as that charge is completed, we hit the corp fairly hard in review, basically saying that you have met your obligations for review of Sandy Beach within that corp based on your recommendations.
Okay. That sounds good. And then do we need to, continue discussion on City Council Resolution 2519? Yes, okay. And then,
That's going to chew up most of our time, I think.
it will. And then Hope did mention that if we could bring up the holiday decorations in May, that would be great. If not, we could go over to June. Do you think we would have time? I don't think that's going to be a lengthy discussion.
My thoughts are, especially if we have a work session planned, let's probably shoot for the June meeting, would be my thought.
Do it in June? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah, preferably in June.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, were there other items then, or are we pretty well in agreement that that's plenty to do at our next?
You do have to lock down a date to meet at Sandy
Yeah.
Beach. Would that be something at this moment?
We can do that via email for the sake of scheduling a
Via
meeting.
email?
Okay. But
Okay.
would
Because
that,
Tim's not here
yeah,
either.
would that first week of May kind of be the
First week of May?
presumptive front runner?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Just a question, do you think we need to have a separate public comment like we did for the mill pond dredging, or are we just going to piggyback it onto a regular meeting?
If you do, I think that would have to be decided at your May meeting for the sake of time.
Because you have to publicize it, I think.
Yeah.
don't you?
So if you do wish to have a public hearing, definitely nail down a date and time, and if you would like to pursue that at your May meeting. So it would be sometime in June.
I don't know. I feel like that would be a good thing to do, is to have a separate public meeting and have it in June. I don't know if that's a decision we can make now, or if we just get feedback on how people feel about that.
We kind of have to, because if we're going to have the meeting and take the comments into account, we have to make our final recommendation to the council
Yeah.
in July.
July.
right? So it would have to be in June. I would think,
So-
no later than.
It would be early June. prior to our next meeting, our next June
Sure.
meeting?
So the way that I see that then is you call a special, or you call a public hearing or special meeting the first week of June, and then you can discuss the findings from that public hearing at your June meeting, which is the second Monday in June.
Okay, okay. So we would want to also look at perhaps in doing an email is checking to see in beginning of June, maybe that first week, right? I'm just looking here. Yeah, well, yeah, that first week in June when when all of us might be available for a public meeting, right? So we have 2 items for the email inquiry, if you will. Okay, yeah, okay. All righty. So is there anything else before we go ahead and just confirm? So our next regular meeting is Monday, May 12th at 5:30, and then we'll have the prior working session. Bless you. Is there anything else before we adjourn? No. Then if we could entertain a motion, right? We need one to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all.